stream live to our custom stream. I always love streaming live. And there we go. We did it. We did it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PPG Grandpa's Paramotor podcast. This is a nonprofit podcast for runintothesky.org. Uh-oh. I hear somebody talking in the background. I always love streaming live. And there we go. We did it. Who's doing that? Whoever's doing that. Okay, we're good now. All right. So this is PPG Grandpa's Paramotor podcast. If you're listening to us and if you're watching us, this is ClearProp TV, runintothesky.org, and of course, paratalk.org. Welcome, everybody. We're starting a little bit early tonight. We have Ben Raven from overseas, over in Italy. He's from the UK, so it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to be really respectful of his time, and we're going to run really quickly through the panel here. We got Butch Fly from ppgbutch.com. He is the director of the nonprofit, the director of operations over the nonprofit. So thank you very much, sir. We also got Paramom from paramomusa.com. If you want to be on the show, make sure you check out paramomusa.com. That forwards over to her Facebook page. You can PM her and say, hey, I want to be on your show because I don't know who that grandpa guy is. We also got Scuba Steve from paramotordude.com. He also runs a paramotor vaping podcast on Friday. So check out paramotordude.com. We also got Jim from Canada, the only guy I know that has maple syrup smelling money. And I went to Canada earlier this year, and guess what? It really does smell like money. Check out carepp.com. He is our official sponsor for the show, carepp.com. There's also a QR code right there on the screen. Zap that. He says that you can get 10% off anything from carepp.com. Want to see his flying shenanigans? Go to careppg.com. And we also got Kevin. He is a student over at paramotorarkansas.com. He loves to fly, loves to kite, and now he's just kicking back and watching the show. So thank you very much, Kevin, for checking this out and hanging in the background. We also got Will Fly from willflyppg.com. He makes incredible videos, so check out willflyppg.com. Subscribe, hit that like button, hit the bell notification, because oh my gosh, it is absolutely amazing. But tonight is not about us. Tonight is all about Ben Raven. Man, I tell you what, on the pre-show, we've been talking with you. You still are on mute. Make sure that you get off of mute. And he is over in Italy right now from the UK. Not only does he paramotor, not only did he start doing his private pilot license, he's a commercial ballooner and was actually at the world champion ballooning. So Ben, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you. It's really good to be on. Really happy to be here.
I can't believe it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Just like Linda said, it's so bright out your window behind you, and you got a paramotor stuck in time. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite photos from flying. But that one up there.
He's just parked right now. It's
just parked. Yeah,
he's got that wind.
Very strong wind.
Yeah. That is awesome. So I know that everybody wants to learn more about you. So real quick, Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into paramotoring?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ben. I'm from the UK. I'm 28. When I was in my last few years of school, I really wanted to become a commercial pilot and go and work for airlines. And I went along to a lot of the careers fairs, and I quickly realized that unless you had kind of banker mum and dad to help you out, it was a very, very expensive endeavor, and you weren't necessarily guaranteed a job at the end of it. There weren't many airlines offering to front the cash. And so that dream kind of died for a few years and took a back seat in my brain. I moved on to an IT career instead and had a very successful IT career working for some big companies, IBM and Accenture. And I enjoyed that for a while, but that feeling of wanting to fly, wanting to get in the air, never really left me. I'd always have dreams of flying, and they were kind of the dreams where you just want to go back to sleep and carry on. And one day I decided, right, enough's enough. I'm going to book a flying lesson and actually see what it's like, and just get my private license so I can fly friends and family, and maybe then progress very slowly up to getting a commercial plane license. So I did that. I started to learn to fly planes, little Cessna 172s, kind of 4-seat aircraft. From the first flight, I was totally addicted, seeing the world from above, flying along the coastlines, being above the clouds. It was just something I'd never experienced before, kind of how stunning it was, how beautiful it was. But also the challenge of flying an aircraft. I enjoyed all the technical checks. I enjoyed talking to air traffic control. And there was this great feeling about seeing a runway in front of you and coming in and having that perfect landing. But during my time training to become a private pilot, I realized it was very expensive. It was about 220, 250 pounds a lesson. So I think that's maybe $250 to $300, something like that. And I could see that all I was really going to do is fly from airfield to airfield. And for me, I kind of wanted a bit more adventure from flying. And I remember just being out on my bike one day and I saw this guy fly overhead on this fabric wing, making a load of noise, and I kind of looked up and just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I kind of looked up what it was when I got home and found out it was paramotoring. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? I started watching a lot of videos on YouTube. Some of the big YouTubers at the time, Tucker, Mitch G, Kylo, and yeah, just was like, wow, this seems amazing. And when I get interested in something, I go all in. I just watch every video there is possible. And I booked onto a training course. I did my training over the winter. So I had lovely clear air, but also there weren't many other students at the school because wintertime is quite time of year. So I was able to get my ground handling done really quickly and get my first few flights in. And I was totally hooked. I absolutely loved paramotoring. I pursued paramotoring for years and years. I ended up doing some instructing on paramotors as well, traveling a bit around the country with friends. I landed at a McDonald's for breakfast. I landed at a pub for lunch. I had to get permission from a local airport to land there because it was within their zone. And I did a couple of camp out overnight with the paramotor and tents on board, and just absolutely loved it. Did some instructing, teaching people to fly, and there was just this amazing feeling watching somebody's life transform after that first flight, seeing them go from not being able to handle a wing at all, making all the mistakes that we all did when we started out, to taking those first few steps, coming back and landing and getting that energy off of them when they come back down, and knowing that their life would never be the same, that they'd always be trying to get that fixed to get back up in the sky. So I really enjoyed that. I started to try other types of paramotoring as well. So I got invited along to do some work with balloons. Some of you may be familiar with Grenade energy drinks, energy bars. They sponsored a hot air balloon in the UK that was shaped like a grenade. Really impressive when you saw it up in the sky. Great marketing tool. And I got invited along for the day to help film a promo video on that and fly around it on a paramotor, let off smoke grenades from my legs, all that kind of thing. And one of the things we got, which didn't make it to the video, was I actually inflated the balloon with the paramotor as well, which I don't know anyone that's done that before, but it was really good fun.
It's interesting that you said that. One of my friends just texted me this last week and said, hey, somebody's going to be doing a hot air balloon. They don't have a fan. I was going to use my paramotor. So it seems like you got something started over there.
Yeah, you can do it. The paramotor is too powerful though. If you've got it on 100%, it almost doesn't work. So you have to put it on 20 to 30%, and then it works a dream. But that was a really good fun day, and from that I got invited to a balloon event, again to fly above the public, let off some smoke grenades from my legs, and just fly around the balloons for the weekend and see what it was all about. And I made friends there with some young pilots. I jumped in the basket a few times, and I was like, well, this seems quite inconvenient. Like, you need a team to come and pick you up and follow you in a vehicle, and it's a lot of effort to get this thing set up. And what's this about? You don't know where you guys are gonna land. You just follow the wind. And after a few flights, I just got completely hooked on how much of an adventure it was, not knowing where you were going to land. It was like every flight was a land out, and sometimes you'd land in a really great place, sometimes you'd land in a tricky place, but it was always really good fun. And you'd meet people on the way, and you get to share that experience as well. Prior to being in the basket and sharing the flight with passengers, I'd done some tandem flying as well, which we'll kind of talk about the differences later. But I kind of made a deal with those balloon friends I made. I said, if you teach me to fly a balloon, I'll help you learn to fly a paramotor. And over the next year, every chance I got, I'd drive around the country to wherever the good weather was. I would jump in the basket with my friends. I'd help them. I'd be crew and go and retrieve them wherever they landed. And just every opportunity I got to meet new people in that world, I would take it and try and get up in the air and build my hours. I got my private license very quickly, and then spoke with one of the operators, a big commercial operator in the UK, Virgin Balloon Flights, the same Virgin.
Real quick, Ben,
Yeah.
when you said you got your license, is that for balloons, hot air balloons?
Yeah, so private, so flying friends and family in hot air balloons. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure. I really don't know about hot air balloons, but in the super chat, guys, what do you know about licensing for hot air balloons? Do you guys understand how that works? If so, please let us know in the super chat. What do you know about hot air balloons and licensing? And real quick too, before we go on a little bit further, a lot of people want to know, before you go into the hot air balloon part, what gear paramotor wise do you fly? What's your go-to? And that wing back there, does it say solo? Is that a Dudek solo?
Yeah, that's a Dudek solo
Okay.
there, and that's a Parajet Maverick. So I started off on a Roadster 3, and then I moved to the Dudek solo. Absolutely loved the solo. I loved the Maverick. I ended up progressing from that to getting a Scout. I had a Scout 1 for a bit, and then I got a Scout. I traded it up for a Scout NXT, and I flew that with a Drift Air and a Hadron 3. I've still got the NXT, and I've still got the Hadron 3. Absolutely love those wings. The Drift Air, every time I land, I have the biggest smile on my face. The Hadron is so confidence inspiring in rough air. Particularly if you're wanting to get kind of foot drags in and precision flying in over terrain where you might have rotor. The Hadron's just an amazing wing for that.
You spitted out a bunch of paramotors and wings. How long have you been paramotoring, did you say?
I think 5 years now, coming up to 5 years.
Yeah. You guys in the super chat, if you've been flying for 5 years, have you gone through a lot of paramotors and wings? I really want to know.
Yeah.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Yeah, the hot air balloon, it is an actual license. It's lighter than air, which is a category of aircraft. So just like, fixed wing or rotocraft, it's a separate category of aircraft. So it's just as much a license as when I fly a single engine airplane, except mine's private pilot, single engine land, and his would be private pilot, lighter than air. I assume it's similar. That's how it is in the US. Now, Ben, I'm assuming it's similar.
Yeah, absolutely. So the license we actually get is for hot air balloons and airships. So as you say, yes, lighter than air. And similarly to what you've got with the plane license, you have your private level, commercial level, and then you've got things you can add on to that as well. So gas balloons like filled with hydrogen and things like that. There are different ratings you can add.
Interesting.
Different, definitely interesting. Hydrogen filled balloons, that's an add-on to your hot air if you wanted to. And what other things can you add on to a lighter than air? I mean, I just think of like the Zeppelin and hot air balloons. What are the hot air?
Yeah.
Is that
So
it?
when you get a hot air balloon license, it's effectively a provisional license for an airship as well. So you have hot air airships, which work like a hot air balloon, where you have flame that heats them up and they get light and then go up. And then you've got Zeppelins, which can be filled with hydrogen or helium, so a gas that's naturally very lifty. Those are a separate rating you'd have to work towards and take exams for, and can be very expensive because there aren't many of those aircraft about, and they're very expensive to build.
Okay. I like I said, guys, I love doing the show because every time we do the show, we learn something. Did you raise your hand, Jim?
I got
What's
a
up?
question. Has
Yes.
anybody put a paramotor on a balloon yet?
I don't want to say it's a world first. I've put a paramotor in a balloon, so we didn't have any retrieve crew this particular day. So I had a Parajet Maverick at the time. I put it in the basket, not built, so disassembled. I had my wing on the side of the basket, and I flew with some friends at sunrise, and we landed. And then I built the paramotor. I took off. I flew back, got the car, and then I came and picked up the balloon. So by 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd flew 2 different types of aircraft, and that was an amazing morning.
Wow.
People have tried putting the inflation fans on the side of a balloon, but the thing's a big sail, so it doesn't do anything for like helping them steer.
On the hot air balloons, are you under the mercy of the wind on where you have to land?
Absolutely, yeah. So they are entirely steered using the wind. We'll touch more on it later, but something you don't perhaps appreciate as much flying a paramotor is quite how much the wind can change when you are going up at different altitudes. And even you might get tiny little bands of 50 to 100 feet that are going in a different direction to all the other winds. And so in a hot air balloon, I'm trying to find these invisible layers to steer to where I want to go.
Do you use I know that Ryan Carlton is a good one for winds aloft for hot air balloons. Is there any particular ones that you check for winds aloft? Because paramotoring, that's pretty important to check, is winds aloft.
Yeah. Ballooning is like that, but it takes it to the next level because you don't have that speed to get you out of trouble if you need to. So you need to know the wind speed and direction. I tend to, in the area I fly, there are a lot of valleys. So I tend to check quite a few different apps and build up a picture in my head of what they're all saying. So windy tends to be very good. Meteo Blue is another one. The UK Met Office, the UK forecasting agency, again, provide forecasting tools we can use. Ventusky. So yeah, I use quite a variety of tools, and I find that some of them are better at particular things than others. So Ventusky is very good at precipitation and predicting where rain's going to fall. Meteo Blue is very good at showing you what the wind's going to do in every valley. Windy is very good at predicting where fog's going to lie, things like that. But that can change depending on which area in the country you're flying as well. So everywhere I go that's new, I have to kind of look at all these forecasts and then check what happens versus what I expected to happen.
Oh.
I've got a question about, and it never ceases to amaze me. I fly out of it's a pretty busy little uncontrolled field, but quite often I'll see the same balloon land there.
Yeah.
So how difficult is it? I mean, that's, to me, really amazing that you can take off from somewhere, and it's obviously that they're planning to land there. I mean, that's like,
yeah. How
hard is that to get just right?
Incredibly. It takes a lot of skill. So balloons are very, very easy to fly, right? It's one control. You put hot air in and it goes up. You leave it, let it cool down, and it comes down. To be able to steer it accurately, Takes a lot of skill and takes a lot of experience. Now, certain parts of the world, you'll have more steering as you climb. So certainly in the morning, you find that the wind on the ground will be going more to the left. As you climb, it'll be going more to the right. So if you imagine your takeoff spot and a cone coming out from it, that's kind of the limits of where you can go. And you'll be using the winds to kind of zigzag towards your target. Now, if they're always planning to land there, it may be that area has quite consistent winds and it's always going across that way. It may be that there's a valley, and so they can actually stay within the flow of the valley down to the airport. But very often, and again, it depends on where you're flying, very often you won't know where you're going to land. And that's part of the fun of it, is every single flight is different. I've never had two the same. Even when I've landed at the same place, I take very different paths to get there. Sometimes I will want to land at a particular farmer because I know he's really friendly, but I might have to go to 5,000 foot one day to get there, and on the next day I might be able to fly there at 100 foot. So it varies. You can only do so much with the forecast. The rest is just on the day figuring out what the winds are doing.
That is crazy. Scuba, do you have a question for Ben?
I do. So Ben, I don't know if you have a spouse, a wife, a significant other. I'm just wondering, do you get in trouble for how much you mention flying, paramotoring, ballooning, et cetera, et cetera? Like, do you go somewhere and go, man, this would be a great place to take off, and then get in trouble for it? Because I know it happens to me.
I think it happens to a lot of people, you know.
Has Ben frozen? Oh, now he's back.
There he is.
Did you miss all that?
I'm back. I briefly lost signal. You can blame the Italian Alps for that. Was that asking if I have trouble from a wife or a partner?
Right.
For doing a lot of flying. Was that the
No,
question?
just talking about it all the time.
Yeah. Talking about flying, like you go somewhere and you're like, man, I wish I could fly from here. And you get in trouble for stuff like that.
Scuba really wants to know if you're single.
Yeah, so I am single. Definitely when I first started to fly, almost all my conversations to friends and family were just revolving around flying. And like, you're driving in the car and you're like, oh, that's a really good field to take off from, and oh, I'd love to go and fly there, and oh, look at this bit of coast, that'd be fun to put drag along. And yeah, I can definitely sympathize with my friends and your friends having to listen to us and not quite understanding why we're so passionate about it.
Yeah, they always go, does everything have to be about flying? Because you can be talking about a peanut butter sandwich, and then you're like, man, if I would get some wings on that,
Yeah, if I was up at 5,000 feet, I bet I could make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich up there and eat it.
Yeah. I've got this is perhaps more British than a peanut butter sandwich. I've got a photo of me flying tandem, serving my friend in front a cup of tea in the air, which was quite a good one. We went up and did that.
That is like so British. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Will Fly, is there another question in the super chat?
There was Bill H says he follows you on Instagram. So you got, I guess, an avid group of people that follow you. That's pretty cool, man.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I follow you.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're friends on Facebook. So right on.
Yeah.
Hey, can you fly a balloon at night?
You can, yes. So there is a night rating. When you get your commercial license, the night rating kind of gets included, but I wouldn't want to fly one without doing it first with someone that knew how.
Right.
The short answer is that for a hot air balloon, you use a lot more gas at night because there's not as much solar energy heating the balloon, so you use a lot more gas to keep it in the air. Obviously, it's very bright as well, so you're using red lights in the basket to be able to look at your maps and things like that. when you're coming into, usually you'd take off at night and land in the day if you could. If you did have to land at night, you'd be looking at Google Maps, checking for big fields and power lines. And then when you're getting really close, you'd be using the burner to kind of light up the ground. So it'd be very, very challenging. But you can do it. There are races across Europe every year where they use these hydrogen-filled balloons that I spoke about earlier, where they're airborne for 2 or 3 weeks and they travel thousands of miles at really high altitude, day and night, and they will just go up and sit there, and then they'll let the gas out when they want to come down.
To pack a lunch.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
Cool.
couldn't imagine. They were airborne, like a human was, or was it unmanned?
No, manned. So usually it's 2 or 3 people in the basket. Yeah, up there for a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks up there in a basket. I know there's a bunch of questions about how in the world did you use the bathroom?
I personally haven't done one of those flights, but I think you get pretty familiar with your co-pilots when you're doing one of those flights.
I bet. So if it's a blue sky and all of a sudden it starts to rain, there's a paramotor or there's a hot air balloon, we know what's going on.
It'll be the balloon. Yeah.
Paul Marzano said, ever drop a skydiver from a balloon?
Oh,
Not yet.
I thought
Not
you were
yet.
going to
I
say
really-
something else. You ever drop a? I was like, oh no, he's not going there.
Did you ever drop a deuce? No.
I couldn't even imagine hanging over the basket to do that. No, I would be scared to death.
They get practice in
the-
those castles. That's how they used to go, right? Just stick it out over the edge and it would
Well,
go.
it's
Yeah,
wicker, right? I mean, wicker just leaks water anyways, right?
Yeah, wicker's great because it's super. It's lightweight, but it's super strong. And something. So in a paramotor, right, you might want to foot drag some water. In a balloon, we call it a splash and dash. So we'll come down, we'll touch down on the water, and we'll take off again. Really good fun. But the great thing about wicker is if you do come down a bit deep and the basket starts to get a bit of water in it, it's all going to drain out. So it's a great material for baskets.
Oh my gosh.
Coming-
I never heard of that. Yeah, it's like doing a little touch and go in the water.
Yeah, splash and dash.
Oh, what do they call it?
Yeah.
Splash and what?
Splash and dash.
Splash.
Uh,
I actually I saw a balloon do that for the first time before I knew that was something that a balloon could do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that was pretty impressive, you know.
yeah,
It's just like what you say. They just come down, touch the water, and right back up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. If I was in that hot air balloon, I might I might just like bail out. Oh, we're going down. Okay, bye.
So there's not much of a chance of landing and not be able to get back up though, because you got so much hot air up there. I mean, you can't really sink, right? I mean, is that even a possibility?
if you're touching down on water,
Yes.
as soon as you touch down on the water supports the weight of the balloon. So for the balloon to go up, all it needs to be is, let me rephrase this. The balloon's very heavy, right? So the balloon I fly with 12 passengers in it can be about 2.5 tons.
Wow.
When I start putting heat in it, it will eventually get to the point where it weighs a couple of kilos and you could lift it up with your little finger. To go up, it effectively weighs negative weight. So it's got so much lift in it, it's wanting to go up. That 2.5 tons, it's got more than 2.5 tons pulling it upwards. When you touch down on water, you'll be descending, but you won't be descending very quick. So the balloon's kind of weight is only a couple of kilos. So when it touches down on the water will support it and it will just float for a while. If you held it there for ages and you let the balloon get really cold, then it would start to get heavier and heavier and it would want to sink. But yeah, they're crazy things when you think about it like that. These very heavy objects can float in the sky and you can literally carry them.
What's so ironic is if you bring anything that even resembles a grenade to the airport, they will string you alive, but yet he flies a balloon that looks like a grenade.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
the
there's
other thing is
gas.
you've got big gas tanks in with
Yeah.
you, and they're each one of those is effectively a bomb. So
Wow.
yeah, they're
That's a huge basket that it must be. I mean, the envelope must be like really big.
yeah, it's about 10. The one that I fly commercially is about 10 stories high. It's absolutely huge. The basket is the size of kind of a small van in terms of its footprint. And they go bigger than that as well. They go really large. Some of the ones flying out in Dubai where they're landing in the desert, they can hold like 32 people. They are obscenely big balloons.
That is crazy. And I'm sorry that I interrupted you last time before you started talking about getting into being a commercial balloon pilot, going back to the paramotor. So please continue where you left off way back there about getting your commercial balloon pilot and the fun that you've been doing that too.
Actually,
Yeah.
got it. One quick question though about you're able to fly balloons at night. Are you able to fly paramotors at night?
There's a grey area in UK law. Gliders are allowed to fly at night because they have events where they can ridge soar on hills and use overnight winds to stay aloft during endurance races. So there's a grey area in that a paramotor could be classed under that category and therefore could legally fly at night. Would I do it? Yes, probably. Would I put it on social media? Probably not. I would really like to do a night flight, particularly under moonlight when you can see a lot. I think that would be really good fun, but it doesn't happen very often in the UK. Over here, we've got much smaller fields, lots of hedges, lots of animals. So you'd have to pick your spots quite carefully to actually go and do a night flight.
Interesting.
Thank you.
All right.
So
yeah, Scuba Steve actually said, "What's the furthest you ever flown kilometers and time?" I guess you're talking about paramotors.
Hot air balloon, I think, is what Jade's asking. Yeah, what's the farthest you've flown in a hot air balloon? Kilometers.
So me personally, maybe 40 kilometers in a balloon. It all depends on the wind speed. So the faster the wind, the further you're going to go. If you carry more gas, so if you carry 2 hours worth of gas versus 1 hour, you can travel twice as far in the same wind. So there is an event in the UK every year. It's in October. It's called the long jump. And what we try and do is fly the furthest distance within the United Kingdom. And a couple of years ago, somebody flew from Scotland, right in the north, down to Cornwall, right in the south, maybe 700 miles without landing. So you need lots of gas for that. You need a balloon that's going to be very efficient, so you can stay airborne for longer. And you also need a lot of luck as well.
Just right too, right?
Say again.
Winds have to be just right too, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly with the UK, where it's an island, you don't want to be getting pulled out to sea.
Yeah.
That can be quite scary. If you're over mainland Europe, then crack on, carry on flying until there's a storm. But yeah, in the UK, you've got to be quite careful.
What about in
We got,
paramotors? What's the furthest you've flown?
The furthest I've flown, about 40 kilometers. So not too far, but about 40 kilometers.
That's
So
a hot air balloon.
most of my flights tend to be about an hour long because I'm flying passengers commercially. So I take them up for the experience and do about an hour's flight. So
How about paramotors? What's the furthest you've flown on a paramotor?
good question. Maybe 60, 70 miles.
Okay.
So yeah, a bit further. For me, paramotoring, I'd like to do a very long distance flight at some point. But a lot of my flying has just been to get rid of the stress of the IT job. I'd go up and get in that cool air and look at the views and clear my head for a while and just free fly without any kind of agenda of, oh, I want to go here or go there. I'd see a cool thing, I'd fly and go and look at it. I'd put drag through some fields and then come back. It's a lot of that kind of flying.
All right, it is about 7:30 right now. We got about a half an hour left, so please continue about getting your commercial, or how do you get a commercial balloon license? I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, sure. So step back quickly, like to get your private license in the UK, you need 16 hours, so not many hours. A couple of those need to be with an instructor, and then you've got to sit a load of theory exams as well. So on the air law, on the weather, on navigation, and on the balloon itself. Then you do your check flight with an examiner, send off all your application, and you get your license back. For your commercial license, it's much more in depth. You need 70 hours, and you have to go and sit much more complicated theory exams. We go and sit them with the Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA. For you guys, it'd be the FAA. We actually go to their offices and we sit those exams. And those exams are very similar to if you were going to go and fly a jet. It's much more involved. You have to build your hours. So you have to have a minimum amount of hours. And then again, you have an exam flight with an instructor. And you're tested on your skills of flying the balloon, your control of the situation as well. So if you've got passengers roaming around, crew doing things, you've got to make sure that people are in the right place and no one's being endangered by being too close when you're setting up or if the balloon's moving around. We are checked on those skills every single year. So unlike the private license where you just have to keep up a minimum amount of hours each year, every single year I have to have my skills tested by an examiner to make sure that I'm still safe, prepared for emergencies, etc., etc. I also have to have medical. At the moment, it's every 5 years. When I get a bit older, that'll become more frequent. But we do have medicals as well to make sure that we're good to fly.
Okay, and how many passengers do you normally bring with you commercially, balloon-wise?
Yeah, so for me, it's 12 passengers. It's the second biggest size we've got in the UK, and the biggest being 16 seat. And it's a very, very big balloon. Big balloons are very different to fly to small ones. They take a lot more anticipation. It's a lot more weight coming out the sky, so it takes a lot longer to listen to what you're asking it to do. And again, we're checked every year on the size of balloon we're flying as well when we're at that commercial level. It's a bit like going from a small jet to one with 4 engines, like a 737 to an A380. It's similar kind of ratings, group ratings.
Do you have to have like hearing protection up there? Is that is that burner really loud?
It's noisy. I put hearing protection when the fans are running. So when we're inflating the balloon, we use 2 massive fans to fill it up with cold air. When they're running, I do put hearing protection in, and then when I'm putting the burner on, at the very start, when you're getting the balloon hot and you're standing it upright, there's a lot of noise from the burner, so I do have hearing protection in. As soon as I get the passengers in, it's just light burns to top it up. I take the hearing protection out, and it's important that you can hear things in flight. So if a tank was leaking gas slightly, you'd want to be able to hear that hissing. If a passenger was asking you questions or was becoming ill, you'd want to be able to hear that. So during the flight, don't wear any.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like, a 4-seater airplane where everybody wore headsets and microphones.
No, for the most part, ballooning is very quiet. When the burner's on, you're not able to speak to people because it's noisy. But 70% of the flight, it's perfectly peaceful and you can hear everything. One thing that surprised me when I got in a balloon was dogs. Dogs bark at balloons. They will bark at paramotors as well. Just we can't hear them on a paramotor because we've got the engine behind our head. But even if you're thousands of foot high, you can hear them from the ground as clear as if they were next to you because the noise just travels unobstructed up to you, so you can hear everything on the ground.
Kind of like when Butch Fly goes, "I can fly like a bird." Everybody can hear from him being 1,000 feet in the air doing a paramotor.
Yeah. I often shout that if I'm flying over like a village or something, I'll often shout down, anybody got any idea how to land this thing? And then I'll turn to my passengers and go, I'm
That's
only joking. I
hilarious.
looked at a YouTube video last night, and they'll all giggle. And
Oh, that is so cool. Butch, I know what we're
Yeah.
going to be doing next time. Does anybody know how?
or if you're going over a barbecue, shout down, "Hey, can you throw me up a beer or something like that? You know? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is gonna be so funny. Real quick in the super chat, you guys out there, have you ever said something from your paramotor down to somebody on the ground? And if you did they hear you? What do you think about that? That is so funny. Butch was the first time I ever heard saying, I'm flying like a bird. And I could hear him from 1,000 feet up when he was flying. I'm like, that's really cool. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
And saying, does anybody know how to land this thing has got to be the most hilarious thing I think I've heard in a long time.
Yeah. No, it always gets a chuckle from the passengers and the people on the ground. I like doing that one.
Oh,
I usually
no,
yell
it's-
down how good
I don't
the
think I've
wind
shouted
is.
down too much from a paramotor. I mean, when I was instructing, I would go up and test the air in the evenings to make sure the thermals had died down. And very often I'd shout down to the other instructors, no, the air is terrible or something like that. And then come into land or, I don't think I've ever really, I don't think I've shouted down at people. Maybe I have actually. I think one time I wanted to land at, like in a garden or a green or something like that, and I'd shout down, "Oh, can I land here?" And everyone was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and I'd come around and come in. But it's much more difficult on a paramotor. You've got to make sure that engine's quiet.
yeah, yes, true. Scuba Steve, any other questions in the super chat?
Yeah, Tony was asking how much gas do you usually use when you fly the balloon? About how much does it go?
Lot.
A lot.
It goes through about a litre on a medium-sized balloon. It's about a litre of gas every minute. So 60 minutes, 60 litres. In a big hot air balloon like the one I fly, it's closer to a litre and a half, 2 litres every minute. So I use,
Good Lord.
yeah, kind of 120 to 150 litres of gas every
That's
flight.
a lot of weight just to
It's
pick
a
up.
lot
man.
of weight. Yeah.
Well,
So
what kind of
propane
gas?
weighs.
What kind of
It's
gas?
propane.
Propane.
Propane gas.
How much is propane a liter over there now?
I think we're paying about 50 pence a litre at the moment. So what's that, 60, 70 cents, like that.
Okay.
Yeah, about that.
Holy moly. Do
Yeah,
they have,
Yeah,
just a quick question, how many different size baskets, like, do they have out, for, the hot air balloons, like, and how many people, up to how many people can they hold, like, what is the maximum or whatever that,
yeah, it's a really good question. The smallest size is effectively like a paramotor and a balloon. Yeah. So it's basically just a chair. It's a chair, and then you have a gas tank on your back and a hot air balloon above you, and you burn like that. So you're literally same setup as a paramotor. You get very, very small baskets for 1 to 2 people, and then literally every size you can imagine, up to kind of 32 people, where you have a pilot in the middle and then your passengers in 4 kind of sections either side of you. There was an attempt a few years back to make a double-decker basket, so one basket here and a basket there, so they could stack twice as many people. They
wow.
quickly realized it was a bad idea because the pilot had a really bad sense of how low the basket was. The first basket was below him, and so the people in the bottom basket would get a much harder landing than expected. So that idea didn't last very long.
yeah, that would be crazy. And then the how heavy are those balloons? And you
Yeah.
have to buy a certain, you have to, obviously, just like a paramotor, you have to buy the wing to fit what you're going to be
Yeah.
flying, right? So there's probably like hundreds of different size balloons. And
Yes.
how much are they too? I bet they're really expensive. You have to buy, do you have to buy them separate? You buy the basket and then you buy the
Yeah.
balloon, or do you buy it all together?
You can buy it all together, new from manufacturer or secondhand. But a lot of people will buy kits separately. The fabric part of the balloon wears out much quicker, so it gets UV damage, the same as a paramotor wing does.
Oh, okay.
So that wears out a lot quicker. So you'll
Yeah.
find that a lot of the baskets will be older than the fabric, and the fabric will get changed over. So there's a few main parts of the balloon. There's the fabric part, there's the basket, there's the burner, and then there's the gas tanks in with you as well. The way the burners are set up, almost always you'll have two of them, and that's in case you have a problem. Obviously, in a car, if you break down, you can pull over at the side of the road. In a paramotor, you can glide down and land in a field. In a balloon, you'd still want to be able to land in a controlled manner and make sure you get to a field. So we have two engines effectively that we fly on, and they're both alive the whole flight. So if we ever had a problem with one, or had a problem with any part of the fuel system feeding it, we just shut it off and land on the other one.
Oh, and you always have like a buddy on the ground, like with a radio pretty much, or do you have them in the car, or they drive like in the truck or whatever and just follow you along?
Yeah, so
Sometimes.
almost always there's somebody following us in a vehicle. Sometimes you're not able to find somebody to come and drive. That's never stopped me from flying. So I'll launch, fly, land, and maybe get a taxi back. When we were out here flying in Italy, I bought an electric scooter, and I'd send the passenger back on the electric scooter while I packed away the balloon, and they'd get the vehicle and come back. And so if there's a way to fly, I will fly, even if I haven't got a ground crew. I like it that much.
And bring your own paramotor so you can fly back. I like that too.
Exactly, paramotor retrieve. That's it's a great way to do it as well.
That'd make an awesome video, Ben.
Yeah, definitely. Some friends and I, we started a YouTube channel a few years ago called the Sky Rascals. We chose the word rascals because it was kind of had this sense of fun, and at the time we had this feeling that there were a lot of people in the sport that if anybody did anything fun, there would be lots of complaints on the internet and keyboard warriors on Facebook. And so with the Sky Rascals, the idea was to be having these really fun adventures, but doing it in a really safe way and doing it properly. And we used to take off and fly to these amazing unknown places. We had some underground caves, an abandoned airfield, an old nuclear base here in the UK. We'd just land and explore, and it was kind of an adventure channel. It's something we're going to pick up again doing, and I'd like to get the balloon involved in that as well. But we took a break. There's a few of us in the group, and lives got complicated for a little bit, but it's something we'd like to revisit, I think.
That is
Very
really cool.
Ah, there we are. Yeah, Sky Rascals.
Sky Rascals.
I like that, Sky Rascals.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, so that's
Very catchy
That's it.
name.
Yeah, now you see, this is proof. I subscribed.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah.
Very cool. That
It's
is
just
so
that
cool.
that
Thank you for
pursuit
that
of
info.
adventure.
Are we going to do a thumbnail? Yeah.
I always have to do a thumbnail.
Yes, we do our thumbnail. So then I can put it on Facebook next week.
Are you ready?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's do one more, because hold on. Sorry. All right. 1, 2, 3. We got it.
Excellent.
Nice.
I want to go to Canada because Sean said Canada smells like money earlier. So I'm just
No, Maple
That's
syrup.
Exactly
said
what you
that.
said.
Yeah,
Replay it.
he did say that, but I think he
Smells like
See?
money. Okay.
Syrup.
Okay. My bad. So,
I'm like,
all right,
well,
you
where's
got
the
me.
money?
Yeah.
All right. Smells like maple syrup money. I'm sorry. I just think of money as maple syrup. My bad. So,
Just
well,
want to go where the money is. That's all.
flog the grandpa when he says something wrong up here.
No, I was thinking the exact same thing, man. Show me the way to Canada.
Everything smells like money up here.
That's so fun.
So real quick, want to give a shout out. We have Chris joined the live audio through Podbean. And I think
Yay.
that Will Fly has a couple of people to say hello to that's been following us on the super chat.
Yeah, man. We got Butch Fly in the house, Bill H, Scuba
Bill.
Steve, Jim Care PPG Samard. Said it right, Jim. Will Fly, yeah. Kramer, Tony
Hi,
Marzano,
Kramer.
Cliffy V, Kevin Houston, One Wheel Grandma, what's up, Susan, City Fly, Shane's
Yeah.
Planet Fame, Paul Marzano, Lift Paramotor, what's going
Mr.
on,
Vegas.
Austin? Flying Flamingo, Deweese Milstead, and
My girls.
infamous
Yes. Love
John
you.
Wayne is in the house.
Much love.
And of
We
course,
met-
Sean Simons.
Yeah, I'm here too. We
That is
met
so cool.
Kramer
Grandpa.
over at the fly-in, and that was pretty good. She signed our Clear Prop TV flag. I signed her book. Butch did too. It was really awesome meeting
Very
Bill
cool.
Kramer. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We saw Bill H over there too and hung out. I wish that we could hung out. I wish we would have been able to hang out more.
Yeah.
We only stayed there for one day because we had so much stuff going on at the school. So we made a long drive to stay there one day and come back. But we saw a lot of people, had a really good time. I did a kiting war, and some young kid beat me. Remember that, Butch?
Some
Yeah.
young
Who-
whippersnapper.
They changed the rules at the end.
Who beat Grandpa?
What was his name? Oh, Judson Graham.
Justin Graham kicked Grandpa's butt.
It looked like they were beating you for real with those Dominator wings. They were like trying to sabotage y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
And
long
at
was
the
the drive
beginning, they
there,
said, "Oh,
Sean?
no touching, don't be touching, or don't go over there and hurt, hit somebody." And then at the end, they were all slamming into each other.
What's a kiting war? It's what you do,
It's
man.
a kiting war. It's the wars, man.
Supposed to do.
There's no rules in the war, apparently. So,
Apparently.
Can't stand it. Hey, how long did it take you to go to EFD, Sean?
it was a 6-hour drive if we didn't stop for gas and stretch our legs. So it was about 8 hours, for old people like us.
16 hours for one day. That's a
Which
commitment.
is like, speak for
8
yourself.
hours, 8 hours one way, 8 hours back.
Dang, man.
But we had a great time. Rain was there. Rain was our
Rain
next door camper neighbor.
Bryant Hummer from Kangook, America.
Yeah.
EFD is only one day.
No. That's all we could do. Leo was there. He does the spray painting and stuff over Wichita
Yep.
Spray Paints. That was really cool. Met a whole bunch of people there. Woody Hayes's son met him and his
Oh, that's
girlfriend,
nice.
and Woody's girlfriend. Really nice, and just so glad I met up with them.
Yes.
Just
I can
amazing
tell
people.
Ben.
Yeah, everybody over there was just amazing. We had so much fun. And Ron from Lone Star was there too.
Cool.
Was Rain there?
Huh?
Rain?
Yes.
She's really
Very
nice.
cool.
Who?
Scott Starbeck, Rain.
Rain.
Yeah, Rain. That's who we were talking about. Rain was our next door neighbor.
She was right
Oh.
next to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, your neighbor. Okay, you can't like where you can't. Scott
Yeah.
Starbeck said they did a good job with the Dominators.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. They did.
Smack
Trevor Steele.
Grandpa around pretty good. Yep.
Very cool.
Who else
Very
was there? There was a bunch of people. Trevor Steele was there. He was in his cast and was tooling around in his little wheelchair doing wheelies. Pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of great people. Wish that we were able to there for the whole time. Landon was there. Who else?
Cool.
Just
The Hell on Wheels, that Sean dude.
Oh yeah, Sean and his wife, Hell on Wheels on YouTube. Yeah, they were across the street from us.
Yep.
Oh, JB was there with his family.
Yep.
JB, and I know that I'm missing some more people, and I
One
apologize.
Star Paramotor.
This is Grandpa Brain. Sorry, so
Yeah, they
I
were
might
there.
forget.
Grandpa brain.
Oh man, I tell you what, we normally are working on our nonprofit from 4 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. The
Yes.
most driving, it's been crazy. So thank you everybody that's been watching, everybody
Yes.
in the super chat. We still got about 8 minutes or so talking with Ben Raven from the UK, but is over in Italy. So what are you doing over in Italy? Sounds like you're having fun over there.
Yeah, the weather in the UK has been pretty terrible for months. Just constant low pressures hitting the country. No, I'm booked to fly every morning and every evening if the weather's good. Got passengers for it, but if the weather's clearly really bad, I like to try and get a holiday within the season. And so I was laying in bed one night looking at the forecast, thinking this is terrible. And this was about 11:30 at night. And I saw a flight out to Italy, leaving at 6 a.m. And so I booked it. I drove to the airport and I flew straight out here. It's one of my favorite parts. It's a little hilltop town called Mondovi. It's kind of the ballooning hub of Italy. It's close to Turin, and it's surrounded by the Alps. So it's a stunning place to fly. The Alps hold off a lot of the weather as well. So for the most part, it's a really good place to get flights. There's maybe 300 flyable days in the year, sometimes more. So it's a really good area. But yeah, I am happy as well to carry on. I know it's late here, but yeah, I'm more than happy to carry on if there's questions and things like that.
Okay, well,
Very cool.
I see your Instagram, but I don't see a lot of updates. Is there something that you update often as far as your flying paramotors and
Yeah, I put the occasional Instagram story up. I don't update it as much as I used to. There was a period of time where I was trying to be a bit more private in terms of what I was putting online. But now I'm kind of in a space where I can carry on and post more stuff, and it's something I'd like to do. Definitely more of my flying activities with the balloons with Paramotor in the UK. I'm based in a part of the UK known as the Lake District. Really stunning bit of the country with mountains and lakes. So it's a great place to get some good photos when you're flying above it.
Do you mostly take pictures or video or both?
Mostly,
or are you the type of guy that does a lot of video and screenshots or pictures like I do?
Yeah, mostly photos now. A few years ago, particularly when we were doing the YouTube channel, I was very much into videography and editing and making YouTube videos. I absolutely love that. It's something where I've been focusing really hard on getting my licenses and getting my foot in the door of the commercial world. I haven't done much of, but now that I'm there, it's something I can do more of in the coming months. Yeah.
Very cool.
Real quick, I know that there's probably more questions, but what is the temperature of that hot air balloon on the inside? And I believe that you guys let the valve open on the top to go down, which gives a big hot air shot up above it, which is why paramotors should never fly over hot air balloons. And you also said too that there's a huge difference between hot air ballooning and paramotoring. Can you tell us the difference between all that?
Yeah, of course. So we'll start with the first question. The internal temperature of a balloon can be on average it's about 100 degrees, the air inside the balloon. It can go up to about 120. There is a little piece of fabric, a flag inside the balloon. It's held in with a piece of metal solder. And so if the balloon gets too hot, that melts, it comes down, hits you on the head, and then you have to get the balloon inspected to make sure there wasn't any damage caused. But anywhere from kind of 100 to 120 degrees would be our normal operating range for the balloon.
So technically, you could put a GoPro inside the balloon filming down then if it's only 100
Yes.
degrees. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's 100
Sorry,
degrees
this is
Celsius.
100 degrees Celsius.
Oh,
Yeah, I should
Celsius.
point out.
Oh, technically,
Celsius,
I wouldn't put a GoPro in.
Yeah, might be a bit toasty. Maybe in a water diving case or something.
That darn Celsius. That was like, oh, never mind then.
So what is 100 to 120 degrees Celsius in American that can't do Celsius?
Hey Ziggy, what is 100 Celsius in Fahrenheit?
100 degrees Celsius is 212 degrees Fahrenheit.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that boiling water temperature?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Thus,
So it's an
what's
interesting point.
100?
If the balloon is wet or there's rain, light rain, it just kind of steams off the top of the balloon. Heavy rain is a problem for us because it cools it down and we'd have to land.
There's no steel cables or anything in the balloon, right? I'm just wondering if it's like a lightning magnet. I don't think you fly in that.
No, there's it's the top half. The top part is all fabric. There's like Kevlar lines inside and riggings and ropes. There's no metal work. At the very bottom, there's steel cables that come down to the basket, and then the basket's got a metal frame within it. But aside from that, no, you're fine with lightning. You asked Sean about the vent at the top. Yeah, so there's a big disc in the top of the balloon. For those that have ever flown above one, you'd have seen it. A big disc in the top. We call that the parachute. Now, for most of the flight, that is sealed in with hot air, and it makes a really good seal. There's not much air comes out of that, and that's held in. If we want the balloon to come down, we can either let it cool down naturally, and it will kind of go into a gentle descent. If I want to make it drop really quickly, so I might be above the field I want to land in, but I know if I descend too slowly, the winds below me are going to push me away from it. I might open that vent up, let some air out, and then the balloon's going to drop really, really quickly down to the ground. As I get close to the ground, I'm going to start putting that heat back in to level it out. Everything you do in a balloon, even if you're just flying straight and level, takes 15 to 20 seconds to take effect. In a big balloon, like the commercial ones I'm flying, it can take anywhere up to 90 seconds or more for the balloon to react. So if I'm wanting to contour fly over the tops of trees and down the other sides, or if I'm landing in a field that's going up or going down, I'm having to fly so much further ahead.
What's the maximum climb rate of a balloon like that? I mean, does it have speed?
Small balloons, racing balloons, they can go up and down at 1,500 to 1,800 feet a minute, so really quickly. Yeah, what's that? 8 meters per second, 6 to 8 meters per second, something like that. So they can do really fast descents. The big ones, it's effectively a much bigger parachute. It's got a lot more surface area. So my big balloon will only do 1,000 foot a minute down. But that's still a lot. They can really move, and you can be at a few thousand feet above a field you want to land in, and you can drop right down and get it. So it's very different to flying a paramotor in terms of how you approach and land fields. You have much more options for getting into them.
It's interesting. How quickly can you go up in altitude with a balloon? What's your fastest ascent rate?
My big balloon, 1,000 foot a minute. The smaller balloon's about 1,500 feet a minute.
And that's
So
why
really quick.
that's why paramotors should not ever fly over a hot air balloon, because you
never ever go above a balloon. If the pilot puts heat in, they can shoot up really quickly. Again, with the vent, if the pilot does open that vent, it will release a bubble of hot air. It'll be a different density, and if you fly through it, you'll get a collapse. It will seriously affect you. So you do not want to fly above a balloon.
Just remember, Scuba, that's 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh yeah, I know. It would melt something.
It's not 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
You want to be particularly careful as well. If a balloon has just landed in a field, you do not want to fly above that field, because the balloon is likely about to vent to deflate. Also, if there's a load of balloons taking off in a field, if there's enough of them, they can create their own thermal, because there's lots of burners going, lots of fans going, and there's lots of radiant heat coming off the balloons. So if there's loads inflating and stacked in a field, you don't really want to go directly over the top because the air will be quite unstable.
Interesting. Now, since you do both paramotors and balloons, help us all understand the etiquette of flying around a balloon with a paramotor, because we see people flying around a balloon, we think it's neat, but I know that balloons want to be, silent, but everybody waves. So really, what is the etiquette for paramotor?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something I asked when I first approached the sport. I would say 99% of balloon pilots absolutely love it when a plane, a microlight, or a paramotor comes over and flies next to them. Never ever going to have a problem with it. If you have radio, I mean, balloons very rarely use airband radios as well, but if you can speak to the pilot, then great. But for the most part, they're not going to mind at all. Even if you're in close proximity coming around the side of the balloon, I wouldn't go in and drag the wing along the side of it. But if you're flying close to the balloon, the passengers will love it, the pilot will love it, as long as you're visible to the pilot at all times. So you're staying kind of level with the basket or the balloon, not going above or too far below. What I would say is, you raised a good point there about the flight being quiet. If a pilot is flying passengers, they like the peacefulness and serenity of the flight. That's part of the experience. So if you're going to go and fly next to a balloon, I'd do it for maybe 5 minutes, 5 minutes or more, and then disappear. If you came back again and did another 5 minutes, I don't think a pilot would have a problem. But if you were kind of staying around the balloon for 20 minutes, half an hour or more, I think it would probably start to annoy the passengers. But it depends. If you're doing wingovers and spirals and things like that, it's obviously going to be quite interesting to watch. If you're just coming over to say hi, I think
If you do that in a balloon, I want to see it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, quite right, and they want to see you as well. It's great having other aircraft fly with you. But yeah, for when you get them followed for a very long time, I think that can sometimes annoy some of the passengers.
Okay, I guess it's just like anywhere else, buzz around, say hi, get out of there, and they're like, wow, that was cool. Not, oh my God, dude, what are you doing? So okay. It just common sense then. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any other questions? Exactly. Super chat, the panel. I don't want to take over all the questions.
Walter's in the house.
Hey, Walter. We already know it's tomorrow.
Walter.
I have to run or leave.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Real quick, Jim has something to say about his t-shirt giveaway.
Oh yeah, if you subscribe to my channel, I got a t-shirt just like this one with the dudek symbol on, the new dudek, not the old dudek. And it's available. So subscribe on my channel, and once I hit 1,500 subscribers, I will send it out to one of them.
It's my size, so y'all can just send it to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to give away, all 1,500 need to get something.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure we can make something happen.
Yeah, just tell everybody that if they mention PPG Grandpa, they get 10% off anything at carepp.com. There you go. Plus, somebody special gets a t-shirt.
Done.
Man, nobody's ever shot at you, have they? Bow, gun.
No, I mean, we've got there's much less guns in the UK. But it's a really good point actually to move on to is farmers and landowners. So with a paramotor, you might fly over a place and upset them, but a lot of the time they're not going to be able to tell you that you've annoyed them or upset animals or things like that, because you're landing in a different place, right? When I fly and when I land, I have to land in farmers' fields. I don't have any choice about it. I can't give them advance warning because the weather's taken me there. So there's a real etiquette with the farmers. I'll show you quickly for the guys watching the video. I fly with a tablet. I might have to
Oh,
do
that's blue
something.
screened out.
Let me fix that quickly.
So you fly with a tablet.
There we go. So I fly with a tablet. It's got maps on it. So we call these ordnance survey maps. They show all the fields, the forests, motorways, things like that. And for those watching the video, you'll be able to see lots of green dots, green people on the map, and a couple of red ones. So this is effectively my intelligence when I'm in the flight of where I've landed before and how welcoming the farmer was towards the balloon. I may have contact details for them. I may have a note saying we've flown with them at some point. But I try and aim for the farms that I know are going to be friendly towards the balloon. We do have a couple of red farmers on there. They may have had a bad experience before. A balloon might have scared some animals, landed and broken a fence or something like that. Or they might you get some people that are just generally unpleasant. I'm sure we've all encountered them flying at some point. We have had a couple of instances where farmers or gameskeepers have shouted and been swearing up at the balloon. I had one instance where a guy went and tracked down my crew and was shouting and swearing at them and giving them all kinds of abuse, and then drove off before they could say anything. When that happens, I, as the pilot, always go and find that person. I track them down and I have a chat with them, because very often they won't understand why we've done what we've done. So say we've had to come low over their animals and that's upset them. It may be because I'm low on fuel. It may be because the weather has turned really nasty. I may have a passenger who's ill. And so I point out to them that the etiquette that I try and adhere to is to avoid farms that I know don't like balloons or that have animals. I try and avoid the animals. But sometimes, for safety, I absolutely have to fly above them, and there's no way around it. I can only steer using the wind. And I point out the law to them as well, because sometimes they'll give you an attitude of, you have to pay me loads of money if you want to get your balloon out, or if you land here, you just simply won't be able to get it out. And I point out to them it's unlawful seizure of an aircraft. You can't do it under the law. The police are on my side. And here we always go and find the farmer who owns the field first, and I've got really good crew that are local lads. A lot of them have had a drink with the farmers. If they haven't, their dads have had a drink with their dads. So I've got some really good lads that go and speak to them and get them on side. We usually give them a bottle of whiskey when we land. But yeah, occasionally I have to go and speak to them, and it goes a long way speaking to them as a pilot and explaining why I've landed there and what I was trying to do if they are unhappy. And 99 times out of 100, they turn around like that and they're really happy when they understand it. It's just having the difficult conversation sometimes, particularly if someone's been angry to start with.
It's interesting that you talked about the laws. So over in the UK, the laws, are there any? Okay, let's start with paramotors, since this is kind of, everybody follows this as a paramotor pilot or wants to be. When it comes to paramotors over here, we don't have any restrictions as far as we need to stay up at a certain altitude, like under 91, if I'm correct, Will. You have to stay away from 500 feet away from any man-made structure unless you're taking off or landing. Is that correct, Will? Under 91, if you're still muted, we can't hear you. But is that correct?
There it is. Found I have 100 windows open. I tried to find the window. So 500 feet from any person, vehicle, vessel, or structure. And of course, at no time can you, except for takeoff and landing, of course.
Okay, so that's private pilot's license, where you actually license under FAR 103, which is our ultralight. We can fly next to structures, we can fly over structures, but we can't fly over anything that's considered congested. As far as
there's something else to that too. So long as it's coordinated, you can fly as close to one another as you want to. You just can't create a collision hazard. So
under 91,
under part 91.
okay. So if you're flying an aircraft and you have a relationship or agreement, you can fly next to structures. Is that
Yep.
what you're saying? Okay.
Yep. Oh, well, now well, yeah, I mean, the structure, I was talking more along the lines of coordinated flight.
Like,
To aircraft.
okay.
So, I don't think, if something went wrong, I don't think that the pilot did his due diligence. If he had a power unit failure, there's no way, you can't really coordinate with the building or even the owner of the building.
Okay. Okay. That's what I thought you meant was the structure part.
No, I would say no to that.
Okay. And then what we fly under over here, we fly under part 103 for paramotors. So we have very, very limited rules and regulations. Don't drop anything if it creates a hazard. Don't fly it in any manner that is considered hazardous. Don't harm anybody on the ground. Nothing can fall and harm anybody unless it's something that you plan for and it doesn't harm anybody. Don't fly over anything congested. So we have really limited rules and regulations under 103. For paramotors over in the UK, give us a gist of what you guys have over there in the UK as far as rules and regulations.
So we're deregulated, so we don't have a specific part, if you like, that is dedicated to paramotors. There are sub 70 rules, but I won't get into that. Effectively, we have the same rules as you. So we have to be 500 foot from any person, vehicle, vessel, or structure, unless we're taking off or landing. For a congested area, so a town, for example, a built-up area, you have to be 1,000 foot above it, or glide clear. So you have to be able to glide clear of it to land. So those are the two main distance rules. We are not allowed to fly close to any person on the ground, even if it is coordinated. So any vehicle, vessel, structure, we're not allowed to fly close to them, even if it's coordinated, even if we know them, unless we're taking off or landing. The only time you can fly in proximity is if you're flying in proximity to other pilots. But again, as you said, Will, not to cause collision hazard. Legally, paramotors, or legally any aircraft can land wherever it needs to in the UK for the purposes of safety. The only slight complication to that would be military land. So trespass laws in the UK, it's not a criminal offence, it's a civil offence, so you could land anywhere. As soon as the landowner tells you to clear off, as long as you clear the land, it's not illegal. Military land, there's specific trespass laws, so you might get a bit more heat if you landed somewhere like that. But for the most part, legally, you can land wherever you need to for the purposes of safety or whatever. So on a paramotor, I mean, if you wanted to land somewhere, there's a million things you could say, right, to be able to say, I needed to land there. It could be the weather, it could be low on fuel, whatever. In a balloon, every single landing of ours is unpredictable. We don't know where we're going to be a lot of the time. So we very much take advantage of that rule to land and make sure that we can stay there if we need to and not fly. Don't get me wrong, sometimes if a farmer's not happy for us to stay, if I can, I'll fly onto one that's happier. It's a much more pleasant experience for everybody. But sometimes if the weather's turning bad, that's where I'm staying, and no one could convince me to move the aircraft at that point. In terms of takeoff sites, you are having to go on to somebody's land to take off, so you'd need permission to do that. In some parts of Europe, so I think Germany, for example, the local clubs actually have to sign off on those takeoff sites. But in the UK, as long as you go and have a chat with the farmer and they're happy, then all is good.
Okay, so you do have the 500 foot rule, but you can fly over towns as long as you can glide over it. Over here, we don't have the 500 foot rule. We can fly pretty much around anything that we want to. However, we cannot fly over any township or anything considered congested at any altitude. However, if you're up at 15,000 feet, really, who's going to say anything, right?
Yeah.
But very interesting as far as rules and regulations around the world when it comes to ultralights.
There's one further thing I'll mention, which is very specific to ballooning, and this is something we call PZs, prohibited zones, or SAs, sensitive areas. So if you look at, well, let's turn off the thing again. I'll do that quickly. So on my map, I have access to a UK-wide database that shows. You see on there a load of red shapes. Some are circles, some are shaped around the fields. What those are is where farmers have made kind of formal complaints about balloons landing, and they want balloons to stay away. So some of them might be because they've got expensive animals, so they want us to stay 500, 1,000 foot or more above. Some of them, a pilot might have landed and had trouble, expensive landing fees, farmer damaging the balloon or whatever. So we do fly with a bit of intelligence so we can steer clear of those places and not land at them. And,
Oh, that's not like airspace zones. That's actual farmer fields that they block out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's farms. So we've got all the same airspace rules, but these are, it's like informal airspace, if you like. Well, that's the way I look at it. Some pilots look at them as set in stone. Oh, I can't go through that. Or that farmer wants us to be over 1,000 foot above. I can tell you now, if it's not airspace, I will fly through that. I'll fly above that farmer's roof if I have to for safety reasons. If I need to get down, I'm not worried about this informal agreement. I'm going to be in his fields, and I'll happily make them understand why I've had to do that. So they're more of a guideline, I think, for most, and we try and adhere to them as much as possible because it just keeps them a bit happier.
Interesting. Any questions in the super chat or the panel as we continue? It's 8:18 p.m. Central Standard Time right now. 18 minutes past the hour that we originally agreed on, but he said just keep on trucking if everything's good. So any questions from the panel?
I'm just real appreciative because it's Ben, man, it's what, 3:18 over there in the morning?
Yeah, don't be silly. I'm a 24-hour kind of guy.
Yeah,
The sun will be
you
coming
don't even
out
have to go to
soon.
bed, man. You just like you're already dressed and everything.
Go get a
I
good
know, right?
sunrise paramotor flight, you know.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, real quick on the paramotor thing. We have a rule that we can fly half an hour before sunrise with a strobe, and half an hour after sunrise or after sunset with a strobe. Do you guys have anything like that as far as flying after or
Yeah,
before?
yeah, the same rule. We refer to it as civil twilight here. In a balloon, you don't have to have the strobe at those times. You just have to make sure your planned flight lands before then, if that makes sense.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Any other rules or regulations that you guys want to ask Ben about over in the UK and also too in Italy right now? What are the differences in your rules and regulations? Do you need to have any licenses or anything, or is everything just is the same as the UK over in Italy?
It's a really good question. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the UK and European politics of late. Some of you may have heard of Brexit, which was the UK leaving the European Union. A bit of a mess that, and it's made things very complicated in terms of the rules for aviation. So before, British pilots could work in Europe, could live in Europe, could fly European aircraft. Now that we've left the EU, it's much more tricky. So I can fly a British balloon in any country in Europe. I can't fly a European balloon over here. So even though they're the same aircraft, same manufacturer, it's just these silly bureaucratic rules that get in the way. Italy and most countries in Europe have very similar rules to us, right? I think it's all stemmed down from the ICAO standards, the international standards. And so we have the same kind of 500-foot rules around here. Same rules about entering airspace and communicating with air traffic control.
Do y'all have the same rules for paramotors and balloons about clouds?
Yeah, clear of cloud, ground in sight. Yes,
Okay.
you do. You can't do instrument rating because you can't fit instruments to those aircraft. If that makes sense.
Are you ever going to try? Are you going to try fly sometime?
I'd like to try it. I'd really like to try it. It's something I haven't done yet. It's something I'd really like to do. There's ambition in the UK to set up a similar kind of charitable organisation, as you mentioned earlier, kind of helping out not just disabled veterans, but veterans in the UK that are struggling from mental health as well. I've got friends, and I know within the UK there's a lot of ex-military flying paramotors, and for many of them it's been an escape, a new pursuit, something outside of military service to build a friendship group and an expertise in, and for many of them being able to go up to a few thousand foot and clear their head has kind of transformed their mental health. And so that's something that a friend and I were kind of looking at doing within the UK.
Yeah, you should. I think you'd be really good at it. I mean, you're so good with people, I see that right away. And it's, to take people up that, like I myself, I went on a tandem last year, and then I went on my first tandem this year, and it's life-changing.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
I just, my gosh, yeah, it does. It changed your life, and it was so much fun. And
one of my favorite things, or one of the things that I prefer, let's say, about ballooning versus paramotoring is it's much more of a shared experience. So I'm taking passengers up, and we're all experiencing the same thing, looking at the same view. So every single flight, I get to feel that energy of all these people experiencing, looking at the world that way for the first time. And I definitely, when I learned to fly paramotors, you look at the world in a different way. I think if more people could see the world the way that we have, it would be a much better place. And so one of my favorite things is sharing that experience. And I did some tandem flying. I really enjoyed it. But there were limitations to that as well. I'm a bigger pilot, so I need a bigger wing to do that, more powerful engine. And I wanted to share flying as well with people that perhaps couldn't otherwise. So trikes are a brilliant way to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's something that I've never experienced. That's good. Go ahead, Well,
I was going to ask Ben, what's the weirdest, oddest, or most unique thing that's happened while you were flying a balloon? Like with your passengers, and you don't have to answer this right away. You can answer other questions and just keep talking. It'll pop up probably. I know. I mean, if someone asked me that same question about flying a paramotor or even an airplane, I'd have to really think about it, because there's been some doozies.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have a think about kind of weirdest or most unique experiences in the background, but 95% of the flights are lovely and they're wonderful. I really enjoy them. There's 3 to 5% of the flights that can scare the shit out of you if you let them.
Do you take up women and they go, "Hey, can you land? I need to pee"? Does that happen?
I haven't had that yet. I've had a few passengers that have been quite scared at the start. Within a few minutes, that completely goes away. I don't know if any of you guys find this. I don't like heights. You will not get me up a ladder. I've never felt an ounce of fear on a paramotor, and I've been upside down on one. It's totally different, and the same in a balloon.
I'm glad you said that, because I say that all the time. You'll never see me on a ladder, never see me on top of a house, and you definitely won't see me climb one of those towers that people do to change a light bulb on, top of stuff. But I will fly around that every day of the week and even higher and not feel anything. But I am definitely afraid of heights. Maybe it's not afraid of heights. It's afraid of rickety things that I could fall off and hurt myself from.
Yeah.
It's afraid of hitting the ground.
That's been a known fact about pilots and heights, a disproportionate number of pilots are afraid of heights than, say, the general public. Maybe it has something to do with their respect for altitude, or I don't know, everything they do, and they do everything in their power to keep from coming in contact with it, with the ground, unplanned. So that is
No,
interesting.
because Sean won't get on a ladder. I got no problems with ladders and stuff like that, but climbing one of them towers to change a bulb, no, that's not happening. But I'll fly up there, no problem. I'm just not
Yeah, I'm
climbing
exactly
anywhere
the
that
same
high.
way.
Yeah, that's not happening. I can't watch videos on YouTube of those guys walking on those little steel beams. It makes my hands start sweating. I can't even think about that, man.
There's no problem when I watch that stuff, but what really gets me is when they do the caving and they're going through these really tight things and they have to put their tank through first and then go through this and they're barely going through underwater. I'm like, no,
you're
that's even
claustrophobic.
worse. Oh man, don't put me in that situation. But man, put me in a paramotor, no problem. I'll fly anywhere, everywhere, and I feel safe and secure. I think that's the difference, right? I mean, right, Ben? You feel safe and secure in a paramotor.
Yeah. One thing I'll add as well. So on a paramotor, we talk about bump tolerance, right? So your tolerance to turbulence and how happy you are being thrown about in the air. In a balloon, you have absolutely no turbulence, no bumps, no nothing. It's a very different way of experiencing the air. The way I'll describe it is, if you imagine a rough sea, a paramotor is like a speedboat skipping along the ocean, so it feels the bumps. A balloon kind of just wallows up and down on the waves, so it doesn't feel anything. It doesn't rock. It doesn't sway. The way I would know if it was turbulent is I'd look at my altimeter and I'd see that we were going up or down when I hadn't put controls in, or I might feel gusts come through the basket. So for almost the whole flight, you have no wind at all because you're moving in the wind. So there's no wind at all coming through the basket. If I feel wind on me, it's because I've climbed into a different wind direction or a different wind speed, or because there's turbulence. And so I get a real micro appreciation of how the wind changes in valleys, in front of the trees at different altitudes. But being bald, it's like a big sensor. So no matter which direction the wind comes in from, you can feel it and you're like, right, okay, I'm going to change direction in a minute.
What about paragliding? I had to ask that one.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. The friends I used to paramotor with very regularly, when I went off and did ballooning, they actually dipped their toes in paragliding. So they've tried it and they tell me it's amazing, and I should. So I definitely will at some point, but not yet.
Well, you know that with a paramotor, if you go up and you go to idle, you are paragliding. So, we all have paraglided, just not from the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I had to ask that real quick because my son, that's why I got my name Paramount, because my son Robert Michaels is a paraglider in San Diego, and he's been flying for like 2017 or whatever, and then I just kind of started getting involved in the sport, and I got in the show and wanted to see what all the excitement was about, and that's when I decided last year to take my first tandem, thanks to Eric and Jade Lear of Northern Lights Paramotors LLC. And it was an experience I'll never forget. And I'll go back up again next year, even though my son's like, nope, not me, Mom, my other son. But I
remember the
cool
first
sport.
time I took off on a paramotor. It was a winter day, there was a little bit of snow on the ground, and I remember being strapped in, and that first flight you've got sensory overload because you try and remember everything your instructor said, you've got him in your ear, you've got the noise of the engine, you've got all these thoughts going on, what's it going to be like? And obviously I had this thing as well, like I might be scared of heights when I get up, and I remember that initial takeoff run and lifting off the ground a couple of feet and just having this overwhelming sense of there's no fear, there's nothing, there's no sensation of like I'm going to fall. I just feel secure. It feels normal. It feels right. And yeah, I think so many people I've spoken to be like, oh, I don't know how you do that. You're so brave. And really, until you face that fear and realize, oh, actually, there's nothing to worry about. I think,
I think people
yeah,
that
if
are
I hadn't
scared of
taken
it
that lead,
should go parasailing first, because that's
yeah,
really similar. I mean, you're towed by a rope, but you get to feel what that glider feels like above your head. Even though you don't have a
yeah,
motor on your back, you still get to feel how solid that glider feels above you. There's
yeah.
no fear.
That's true. That's
I
true.
think for some people though, part of the fear comes from having a lack of control. So when you're flying the paramotor for the first time, you know if you pull a brake, you turn, and you're in tune with it. Whereas some people have said to me before, particularly in the balloon, that part of the fear would come from not having control of the situation. And when you fly passengers tandem as well, if they start feeling sick, I always used to ask this question. I used to say, out of 10, how are you feeling? Because if you ask somebody if they're feeling okay, they'll always say yes, because they don't want the experience to end. If you ask them out of 10 how they're feeling, and they say anything less than 10, like a 9, you know they're already starting to slide. They might be feeling a bit motion sick. And so I always used to give them the control straight away and let them fly. And their brain tunes into the movement. They feel like they've got control. And within a few minutes, that situation
Oh.
goes. It's quite interesting.
Great. Yeah, that's a great idea.
is.
Yeah, I got to do that. Now, I wasn't nauseous or anything. Surprisingly, both my flights, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, I was just so excited to be up there, I'm sure everybody could hear me on the ground yelling, because I was just like yelling.
I heard you. I'm in a whole nother state. I heard you.
We all heard her.
Yeah, these poor guys have had to hear my same story for the last 2 years. And then when I went on my second tandem, then they had to hear a new story, that I did. We did a little touch and go, and I felt myself getting braver, So
Yeah, brilliant.
That's
Yeah,
all
this
right.
year.
I'm happy to see you so excited for it. Every time you get to fly, it's really exciting. I don't think you can ever get tired of it, really. I don't know how these guys are like, I'm kind of tired of paramotoring. I'm gonna go base jump now. I just don't feel like
Yeah.
that'll ever be an
No
issue
base
for me.
jumping. Ugh.
Definitely
Yeah.
not. Well, I
Well,
think it's 8:30 real quick. Will
Okay.
Fly has to go, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
Will Fly, thank you so much for hanging
Thanks,
out with
Will.
us.
It's
Thank you
been
for
all
the screenshot. Make sure you send it to us, and we'll
Yeah.
catch you next Monday. Actually, before next Monday. So have a great week, buddy.
Yeah, and hey,
I will. Thank you.
you're welcome. Just the Tip 12.0 is coming out this week, so stay tuned.
Where do we go to
Oh.
see that, Will Fly?
Go to willflyppg.com. It'll take you there, or you can search for Will Fly on YouTube.
Cool.
All right, buddy.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
so much.
awesome.
Have a great night.
See you
Thank you,
later, Gators.
Yeah.
Hey.
So how are you doing, Ben? You still doing okay? You
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
tired?
I'm having fun. I'm happy. Yeah, all good.
Fun and happy. Excellent. We love fun and happy.
As
Much
soon as we
said,
get
you're
done
not
with the
allowed
show,
to
he'll be
change
like-
your mind. Oh, like I started paramotoring. I can't change my mind now. I don't think there's a way that is impossible. I would have had to go through training and absolutely hated it. And I told her when I went to go train to fly a paramotor, I was like, all right, when I do this, I'm either gonna really like it and then go, that was enough, or I'm 100% in, which obviously I was all in. So there you go.
Having trained a few people, there is a small percentage of trainee pilots that come through because they're hobby hunting. They're the kind of person probably got quite a stressful life in other parts, but have quite a lot of money, so they'll try motorbiking, they'll try getting a scuba license, and then they'll go on to paramotoring, and then they'll get bored of that and they'll go on to another thing, and they go through quite a lot of hobbies looking for that thing. Now for some of us, paramotoring is the first one. Some of us have hobby hunted and come to paramotoring, and it's the last hobby you'll ever have because you love it and it's passion. But yeah, there's a small percentage of guys that definitely check out after a year or two because the machine gathers dust and they're on to the next thing. I think that happens sometimes.
Unfortunately, I
I flew
agree.
drones a lot, and the more I flew the drone, I was like, I don't want to be flying that up there. I want to be the one up there looking down,
Yeah.
getting those pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that and paramotoring was the answer to that. It's the same thing, but just you're up there instead of a drone.
That is so funny. After I started flying paramotors, my drone has collected dust. And I used to fly that all
mine
the
too.
time. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
I
you get a
used
lot
to-
of drone pilots coming into coming into paramotoring. You get a lot of motorbikers coming into paramotoring as well. I think it's like a sky motorbike, so it suits those two sports quite well.
It does, doesn't it? I don't have any more three-wheelers, four-wheelers, no boats, no other sport stuff, because everything I can do on a paramotor, I can kind of mimic that doing a paramotor. Like, you know, you foot drag or get really low. That's like riding a motorcycle, a four-wheeler, three-wheeler, you know, you get up to this to the water here, right? You know, or a chasm or something, right? You can pull your brakes, give it some gas, and now you're doing a ramp like Evel Knievel. Well, if you guys are young, you probably don't know who Evel Knievel is, but man, I can feel like I'm Evel Knievel doing that. I can foot drag on a pond, and I got a boat now. Now I can just give it gas. Now I'm in an airplane, get some really good air, and now you're sitting still. Now you're in a helicopter. I mean, I tell you, everything is just really amazing with a paramotor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a friend, he does, he's the only one I know that does paramotoring, but he also does jet skiing. He really likes racing jet skis. So I guess, you know, he just decides that's something else he wants to do, but he was doing the jet skiing before he paramotored. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Very cool. It's such a fun sport. And like I said, I'm so happy that I got to experience it, because the last couple of years I've been listening to everybody else talk about it, you know, and finally I was like, you know what, if I don't go up, you know, and do this, you know, I'm going to regret it. I want to know what this is all about. And so and that, talk about stepping out of your comfort zone, right? And that I've jumped on that tandem, and I was like, let's do it. And then this year it was twice as fun, because I knew what to expect, you know, and yeah.
And next year,
I couldn't stand still. I was just so excited the whole time.
And next year, Eric will do a wing over for you, and a loop to loop, and a barrel roll, right?
Oh no loop de loop. I'll do it. I like the little touch and go and kind of the wheelie thing that he did, you know. But
Deweese wants Kevin to talk really bad. I don't get it. She's like, does Kevin ever talk? You can just speak up, you know. We don't know what your voice sounds like.
We know that the background is full of dogs barking, right, Kevin?
Sometimes it is. Loud noises make them bark for some reason.
I think it's just barking at that paramotor he sees right there behind Ben.
Probably.
Maybe.
Well,
This was really fun. This was such a
One thing I want to touch on is like scary experiences as well, right? I'm sure we've all had times on a paramotor where we've gone up in the air and have been looking forward to getting back down. It happens sometimes. You get the same in a balloon, particularly as you are entirely at the mercy of the weather. Your steering, your speed, your everything is the weather. And I've had situations where I might run out of wind, so I'm stuck above something that I can't land. So I'm stuck above a town, or I'm stuck above trees, stuck above power lines, with no ability to get clear until the wind changes. Or you might have weather pick up, so it starts to get thermic, and we know about thermals and cloud suck. Balloons get affected by that. They get pulled up, they get pushed down, and so 5% of the flights, that's where I earn my money. I describe it as being like a swan. I have to be paddling really hard underneath, working really hard on the problem, but on the surface, really, really calm. Because as soon as the passengers know that I'm nervous, that's when chaos erupts. So you have to have quite a good poker face sometimes. And I've had some nasty situations where I've approached high voltage power lines looking like I'm going to cross them, and then the balloons just turned and followed them for ages. And those kind of situations aren't so fun, but you kind of work the problem. You try and find winds at different heights that are going to get you clear. And I think it's similar on a paramotor, but a paramotor, you've got that speed that can get you out of trouble. You can glide to somewhere. Because when you're relying on the wind, it can be a bit more tricky.
Well, it's very, very interesting. Can you go over the apps and what you use for your winds aloft to determine your speed and the wind speed?
Yeah. So the best one I've found for winds aloft is Meteo Blue. It's a really great app, and the reason I find it useful in my area is I've got a lot of valleys and hills feeding in. What Meteo Blue does better than any other app is it shows you a visualization of how the winds are moving through these valleys. So I can see, you know, each part of the area that I'm flying in, what the wind direction is going to be at different heights and how the weather develops. So I might be taking off somewhere where the weather's really good, but I know if I fly 8 miles, I'm good. If I fly 10 miles, I'm going to be in trouble because the wind gets stronger. So Meteo Blue is really good at visualizing the wind direction and the wind speeds at different altitudes.
Can you spell that for me? Can you spell that?
So it's METEO and then blue, like the color Meteo Blue.
Okay.
So really good app.
Thank you.
Some of it is learning which apps and which forecasts are best for your area. But Meteo Blue for me tends to be quite good. If I'm just wanting to have a good idea of what days this week are going to be flyable, Windy tells me that information really quickly. And the Windy team have put some really good development into the app lately. There's loads of filters, so you can see fog, what height the cloud's going to be, how much visibility you've got in kilometers, but some really more in-depth stuff as well that I look at, like what are the chances of thunderstorms building in my area, and for each parcel of air, how much energy is in that air, so how unstable is the air going to be. So some really good filters on that too. The Met Office, so the national service across the UK for forecasting, they do a balloon specific forecast as well. So they have point locations at different towns over the UK, and they'll tell you what they're expecting the wind to be at different heights in that area. So that's another useful source. For me, as many sources of weather information as possible. I like to build up a picture, and then I can build up a strategy of how I'm going to fly that flight. And if I turn up and the weather is different, then I can predict how it's changed. So it might be that a weather system has moved in quicker, or it might be that it hasn't arrived yet. And so I'll be watching out for, you know, a cloud front coming in or something like that. So the more information I can get, the better on weather.
Absolutely, I agree. Definitely. The more apps we use, the better. Real quick, I guess, since we're here, Scuba Steve, what apps do you use to check winds and winds aloft? Anything in particular, or just Windy, or what?
I mainly use Windy. I mean, obviously now Gaggle also will tell you the weather about specific LZs that you have favorited in your area. So if you favorite an area that you like to fly from, you can, you know, make that a LZ, and then in Gaggle you can just click that and it'll tell you all the winds and that stuff, which is pretty nice. I like that they added that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Butch Fly, when you go fly, what do you use as far as looking at your winds aloft? And if you're on mute, we really can't hear you. Nope.
Yeah.
Now we can't see you.
He just wants to be hidden, apparently.
Well,
Where'd you go, Butch?
video's not going, but PPG report, I like that in Windy.
Right, ppg.report.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, ppg.report is good. Also, Ventu Sky is a great app that shows your winds aloft. It shows it where you can actually see it, kind of like what you said about Meteo Blue. It actually shows you the wind, kind of like, it's kind of like Windy, as far as it showing which way the wind's going and how it's directing, but also shows you at the different levels of wind aloft. So Ventu Sky is really good about that.
I find Ventu Sky is really good for precipitation and fog as well. So anything kind of moisture in the air, they tend to have really good models. Also gusting, I double check if I think it's going to be borderline. I double check the gusts against that app. It's quite a good
Yeah, I found Ventus Sky is like one of the best ones, but then again, all the models are different. Like when we go and check out Windy, Icon seems to be pretty close instead of the North American model, which usually is better in a different part of Arkansas. But where we are right now, Icon's the best. Go figure on that. So, hey, Kevin, since you're there, we teach you Winds Aloft. What do you use for Winds Aloft?
I've used PPG Report.
Mm-hmm.
I've used Windy. I've used. Hold on, I'm thinking here. UAV forecast.
Very good. Yes. Yep.
Gaggle. And was it Ventus Sky?
Yep.
And I've used that one. Those are the ones I've used.
Yeah, it really seems like when we use a combination of all these, it usually tends to, you get a pretty good idea, but always go out to whatever LZ you're going to, set up your windsock, and just kind of, as you're setting up, look at the windsock, feel it, because 9 times out of 10 you go out there and it's like, this is not what the app said. Is that what you get to, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big element of being able to feel the air, feel the conditions. And when my passengers arrive as well on site, I talk them through what I'm feeling. So there might be a storm happening, maybe 50 miles away or so, but every now and again you get a big cold gust come through, and I'll explain to them that as the rain's coming down, it's bringing cold air with it, and that's what we're feeling, and that's why we have to wait a bit longer to take off. And so I have situations like that. Being able to read the sky and look at the sky and see whether it's happy or not, see whether there's weather brewing, building, decaying. That's a really important skill as well, I think.
That's very good. I don't know how many people, but I do teach that also at the school, as far as looking at the sky, knowing that if you have a big cumulonimbus cloud, that's going up during the day, at night, expect that to come back down, and you should be able to feel it, in gusts, etc.
There was an evening, I remember it so clearly, where we had a lot of thunderstorms building around the area, but the normal flying area where we'd go from was clear. And I decided not to fly that evening because of these storms about. And I'm so glad I didn't, because about, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes after sunset, those clouds collapsed and the gusting just went absolutely wild as all that air came crashing back down and dispersed out. I have had it once where I've been flying when thermic clouds have collapsed down, and yeah, it's not fun to be in the air when that's happening. Thankfully, it's quite a rare that it does happen, but yeah, it's something to be wary of, certainly. But I found, and you guys probably found the same, the more that I've learned about the weather, the more I've realized there's more to learn about it, and you kind of build up these patterns and things to look for and things that but certainly when you start looking at different types of aircraft, or you get a bit deeper into the weather, it's amazing how far you can actually go into it.
Exactly. No matter how long you've been in this field, you're always a student, because there's always something new to know.
Yeah.
And real quick too, in the super chat, did you know about these big cumulonimbus clouds that come up during the day, and then at night, sometimes right after sunset, they will collapse and cause huge gust fronts? Did you know about that? Have you ever experienced anything like that? Tony Marzano said, so what kind of emergencies have you had, or anybody else had, in a balloon, and what's the worst thing a balloon pilot could expect?
I'm really glad you've asked that question. I was about to bring up just kind of safety and emergency prep in general. Balloons by design are really safe. So like I said earlier, they've got multiple burners, multiple sources of fire. And so you've got backup. So if an engine fails, on my big balloon, I've got 2 spare. I've got 3 engines in total, effectively. I've had, like I said earlier, I've had uncomfortable situations where I've been stuck above power lines. The most common emergency situation you're going to get is passengers going ill. Maybe a passenger faints, maybe they've got low blood sugar because they haven't eaten or haven't slept very well the night before because they were excited. Maybe a passenger has an illness that they haven't told you about because they want to fly. They might be terminally ill with something potentially, and they're trying to get a flight in before they go. They may have some other underlying condition. And so it's something we have to be very careful of flying passengers is making sure you're aware of them and you're keeping an eye on their comfort levels in the flight as well. There are pilots that have had incidents. There have been fires in the basket and things like that. So we carry fire safety equipment on board, fire extinguishers, fire blankets. All of the tanks can be shut off and isolated. And these incidents are extremely, extremely rare. There was an incident, I think, in Mexico, maybe last year, where a balloon caught fire. What had happened, it was very low winds. So a pilot threw a big long rope to people on the ground so they could pull the balloon to somewhere they could land. This rope got caught underneath one of the tank fittings, and then the rope snagged on something on the ground. And the tension on the rope broke off this fitting on the tank. There was a big gas leak. And there was a fire. When these situations happen, thankfully, they're really, really rare. But we discuss them. There's a chat with a lot of the young pilots on it, and if a situation happens somewhere in the world, we discuss it and what happens. And for that particular one, we decided that the best option was to actually attach this rope to. We have a quick release on board, so when we want to take off, we tether ourselves to a vehicle, so we don't take off if we want to. And then when we want to take off, we pull this red lever and it detaches us from the vehicle. We decided the best option with this rope that you could use to pull us to safety was to attach it to that release system. So if it ever snagged on something on the ground, you could cut yourself loose and you'd immediately be out of danger. So I think paramotoring is very good at doing this as well, is people getting together and having these conversations when incidents happen and trying to work out ways they don't happen. The problem is, and we've all got to be aware of this, is the kit we use is extremely safe, right? All of the big problems have been sorted out by the manufacturers and by the schools teaching us. The things that are going to kill us are 2, 3, 4 tiny little insignificant decisions that add up and compound together. So it will be the fact that you didn't sleep well the night before, the fact that you haven't checked one of the weather apps that's giving you warnings about the stability in the air, the fact that your mates have decided to fly because they're feeling up for a bit more of a spicy conditions that day. It could be that you had an extra drink at the bar the night before. It could be that you've forgotten to do your prop up tight. It's when these little tiny things start to come together that you get problems. So whenever I fly balloons, paramotors, whenever I train people, I am really keen to teach them these routines that keep them safe and to watch these little decisions. I think it's so important.
I assume there's no smoking on the hot air.
No smoking, no vaping. While it's important we have fire there, it's important we don't have fire in the basket. So yeah, no smoking.
Right, because you got propane on there. I'm just wondering because that could be highly flammable or explosive.
Yeah, it's in sealed pressurized tanks, but we make sure it's a wicker basket. It's made of wood, so we don't make sure people aren't smoking. We extend the same rules to the farmers' fields that we're landing in and taking off from. And in the summer, when the fields get really dry and you've got that stubble there, you've got a flame next to it when you're inflating the balloon, we make sure there's fire extinguishers on hand and that we're trying to be really careful of things like that happening.
So interesting. In paramotoring, the number one cause of death is drowning. You know, most people that hear about or see paramotors, that doesn't even come up. They didn't even think about that is the number one cause of death. Number one cause of injury is prop strike. When it comes to ballooning, is there anything similar to that as far as the number one cause of death or injury in ballooning? I don't see it, but I'm not a ballooner.
I think more incidents happen in ballooning when there are lots of balloons together. So they might be flying from an event. There's that. When people get into a group, there's that mentality of the people flying, then everybody needs to fly. And people sometimes forget that there's different skill levels there, and you might be better off staying on the ground if you're not so comfortable with conditions. I wouldn't say there's like the main thing in ballooning is if you lose height really quickly. Now the balloon itself, you could be at thousands and thousands of feet and not put in any heat at all, and the balloon's going to come down and it's going to stop. It's going to stop accelerating at some point. It's going to reach a max descent rate where the thing effectively becomes a parachute above your head. The problem is if you have a problem with the vent at the top, and then all the air comes out, it's going to come down like a streamer and hit hard. Thankfully, those are extremely rare events in ballooning. Ballooning's been around for over 200 years, and it's the safest form of flying by a long way. So, yeah, thankfully that kind of stuff's been sorted out.
That's a very interesting thing. How long that have balloonings been going on? I know it's been thousands of years. Do you know when balloons first came around, what year that was by any chance?
It was, I believe, 1782 or 1783. A pair of brothers in France called the Montgolfier brothers built a balloon, and they tethered it to the ground, and they thought initially that it was the smoke that made it lift. So they'd light a fire underneath and let that lift up the balloon, and it would go up slightly. Obviously, we now have very modern burners, very modern fabrics, very modern safety equipment. And so it's changed a lot in that time, but the basic principles are the same. Hot air goes up, and it's the way of controlling the temperature in the balloon that brings you up and down.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
It is almost
in France, they're named, or hot air balloons in France are called Montgolfier. In Italy, they're called Montgolfiera. So there's still that heritage is carried on today. When balloons were first landing in France, obviously the general public had never seen anything like it. So the villagers would get very angry, very scared when these things arrived in the fields. And so the French, being the French, had an ingenious way of solving this. They decided to hang bottles of alcohol from the side of the balloon. And then when they'd land, they'd open the alcohol, they'd open the bottle of wine, and they'd drink it with the villagers. So it was a sign of, we come in peace, we're not here to cause any harm. And that tradition carries on today. So after a flight, we will have a glass of Prosecco, a glass of champagne, to celebrate a successful flight. And yeah, it's a nice tradition that's carried on.
I like that tradition. We need to maybe carry that one on.
Just
bring a bottle of whiskey with you.
While we're on emergencies and safety procedures, and it's a question I have for the panel, and I'll give perhaps my own thoughts on it in a minute, but how often do you guys practice engine failures, emergency situations, engine failure on takeoff, for example, spot landings? How often do you guys practice stuff going wrong?
As far as people in general, students, pilots in general?
In your own personal flying, I think it's one for the chat as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
my own personal flying, I practice that every single flight. Every single flight I practice something. The flight is fun. However, every single flight I do check to see how far I can stall the wing before I start to feel it, right? I fly up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet, kill the motor, and I spot land from that high every single time. I love to spot land. Motor outs, obviously, that's something that you got to prepare for, because you don't want to practice it right over trees or anything. But when I do fly, I know that our LZ is there, it's surrounded by trees. So we all take off and we all get enough altitude in a circle until we're high enough to fly over trees. So in case we do have a motor out, we have a place to land that's not trees. How about you, Scuba Steve?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, basically, as far as, especially when I'm flying, I think the number one thing is always looking for an out. you know, that's like number one on my list. I never fly anywhere that I know I can't get out of.
Yeah.
I try not to fly over water at all, even though I have floats on my paramotor. I still stay near land where I can always cut over and get to a safe landing zone. But yeah, I rarely ever land with my motor on anyway. The only time I do that is if I'm doing touch and goes and it's like good reverse wind conditions. Otherwise, yeah, my motor's off. So, and then I'll spot land somewhere. So yeah, that's a constant practice thing that we do. I've assumed most pilots do.
Yeah, absolutely. Butch Fly, how about you? You've been flying for a while now.
Pretty much the same. I keep the engine on when I'm doing touch and goes on the trike, but when I'm foot launching, I like to kill the engine as I'm coming in. You know, you taught me that, so I kind of stuck with it.
Exactly. How about as far as flying high enough that you have plenty of altitude to take, you know, to land in case you got a motor out?
Yep, that's one of the first things you started preaching. Hey, make sure you get it high enough in case something. It's not if, it's when. You're gonna have a motor out, so make sure you're high enough, and always be looking for a way out. Always make sure you got somewhere to land.
Exactly. One of the things too that I like to talk about is being not only high enough to make an LZ, you know, like maybe the center of a farmer's field. Center of a farmer's field is not optimal because, well, look how far you have to go. Even if you land out 1 mile away from your LZ, look at the terrain between your LZ and 1 mile away, all the way around you. There might be fences, there might be tree lines, there might be a creek, a river. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you would have to pump your paramotor and that wing back. So when you do go out and fly, even though it is fun to fly barefoot in tennis shoes, flip-flops, I always wear tactical boots. They're nice and light. They protect my ankles. And if I'm going to be walking through mud with a paramotor on my back, it's not going to be with flip-flops. So secondly,
you've raised a really important point, and it's something my tandem instructor taught me, and it's something that we can take into our own private flying as well. When if a passenger passed out during a tandem flight or something like that, and you needed to get back on the ground, or a passenger was ill, or any situation, as you're coming into land, trying to land somewhere that's near a track, near a house, near a road, and vocalizing to your passenger, even if you think they can't hear you, right, I'm going to land in this field, the gate is in that corner, just down the road there's a house. So if either one of you has an incident, when you land there, you both know, right, here's where my closest help is, here's how I get out of the field. I think that was a really a good lesson he taught me. And when I try and land now, I always try and look, okay, somewhere close to a road, somewhere close to cars if I need it, and things like that.
Exactly. That's what I was continuing on. Middle of a field is, you know, if you're a newbie, you know, maybe that's the only thing you can do, but practicing your spot landings, when you can spot land and you know that you can get pretty close to any roadway, it's easier to get picked up next to a roadway than it is a mile away in some farmer's field. So practice those spot landings. And a lot of people don't realize too, there's 3 places that you land: where your feet touch, where your feet end, and where your wing lands. So when you come in for a spot landing, or anywhere that you land when you have a motor out, where are your feet going to touch, where are you going to turn around, and where's that wing going to land? And that's something I always think about too.
There's a saying that I always used to say to my students, and I'd still say to passengers and people that I'm teaching to balloon. And I've taken it from the film American Sniper, about Chris Kyle, starring Bradley Cooper. Some of you know it, which is aim small, miss small. If you aim for a blade of grass, you'll miss by a meter. If you aim for a field, you'll miss by a field. So when you're practicing those spot landings, aiming really small, as tight as you can, and you'll learn, even if you miss it, you'll learn a lot about your wing and about your flare and about the wind conditions. And flying a balloon particularly, I explain to people, even when we're just flying and landing in fields normally, aim for somewhere near the gate, aim for a blade of grass, aim for a dip in the field, whatever it is, because that one day that you've been flying over a forest for an hour with nowhere to land, and all you have is that tiny clearing or that tiny track, you don't want to miss it. So make sure you're able to put that thing down on a spot. And yeah, the more you can practice that, aim small, miss small, it's a really good thing to keep in your head when you're flying.
Exactly, too. And the thing is, too, when you go up to a couple thousand feet, you don't have to kill your motor. Go on idle and just see if you can make that landing, because maybe you are thinking, okay, I got plenty of glide, but then you're hitting this headwind that's causing you to sink down. There's no way you can do it. So being able to run back up, and do it again is going to help you a lot too. Taking the SIV clinic, very, very important. You need to be able to land in one spot, which means that you might need to pull big gears to get down low, pop the big gears up 5 feet, 10 feet above the spot that you're landing, and flare right away, right? Come in over some big trees, you get down low, you can spot land really easy. Instead of going so far, you can hit the other side of that little spot that you're trying to land. Also, too, learn how to stall your wing. You can stall your wing, you can slow down, come down nice and easy, and you can adjust that stall to come down and easily let that back up, catch that wave, catch that surge, and come in and land in a really, really small spot. But that takes lots of time in the air, lots of practice. Yeah. Even if you've been flying for many years, if you're not practicing this stuff, you're not going to learn it.
Just on that, like, when you've practiced and got really good at spot landing from 1,000 feet, and when you're starting to think about your wing in terms of energy and how much energy your wing's got, and how much it can carry you forward and your flare and all that. One thing I used to practice, and I used to do it in front of students, and I used to do it in front of my friends without any warning, I wouldn't even know I was going to do it, is an engine failure on takeoff. So as soon as you get 5-10 meters in the air, an engine failure, because that is the most inconvenient place for it to happen. You're going from full power, full angle of attack, and then to the wing surging forward on you, maximum energy down into the ground. And being able to control that situation, being able to check the wing, but then let it accelerate a little bit, and then flaring and landing properly. It's such a satisfying thing to get right, and to feel. And your engine failure is very unlikely to happen at 1,000 foot. It's going to be a hole blowing in the cylinder when you're at full revs on takeoff. It's going to be when you're low coming into land and you've misjudged your distance to field. It's going to be somewhere inconvenient, because that's how Sod's law works. Yes. So yeah, really good one to practice when you're happy that your skills are there, is an engine failure on takeoff.
During our training, we go through the PPG 1, 2, and 3. As you get better, one of the things that we do is we use our tow machine with a free flight harness that is padded very, very well to do simulated takeoffs with a power out. That way you're not coming down with a cage or a motor, and it is in softer grass, so we do know where you're going to land. And that really helps a lot too, as far as simulating something like that could be really dangerous. But in a free flight harness with good cushion and understanding that you're just going to go up, you're going to feel that surge, you're going to check that surge, come down and land on your butt. Use the cage, use the free flight harnesses to take the impact instead of, your legs or face planting. So yes, you're right. These are very, very important things to do.
And another time you get that same sensation as a power failure on takeoff is if you're coming into land on a field and there's a very hot road before it, and you fly in, and that road, the thermal picks you up, and then as soon as you come off the back of it, the wing's going to dive at the floor. And being able to control a wing dive low down is a really nice and satisfying thing when you get to it.
And also too, always taking a wrap, before, when you come in. If you don't need that extra flare on that wrap, you don't have to use it. But sometimes you get some really weird sink, like right after like you said, you're coming in, get a little bit of that lift, and you get to that sink right behind it. And I've caught that a couple of times. Butch, have you caught that too?
Yep.
Yeah, you caught that too on the trike, though. Thank goodness, on a trike.
Twice.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do is we always take that wrap. If we need that extra flare, we got it. If not, we don't take it. But taking a wrap, on coming in for landings are really, really awesome. Looks like we got another question. Kevin, what was the question? Kevin.
Tony Marzano was asking how long can you fly? I guess he's talking about the balloon before you have to replace the canopy, the actual balloon.
Yeah, great question. Balloon technology and balloon fabric has come on a long way. It used to be very similar to paramotor hours. So a lot of the older balloons will kind of do 300 hours. It's ripstop nylon, very similar weights to our paramotor wings. However, the fabrics in ballooning are getting a bit more advanced. For the most part, on a ripstop nylon balloon, you can expect kind of 400 or 500 hours. Some of the balloons use material called Hyperlast. It's a much more durable fabric. Some of them are polyester now, and those balloons can do kind of 800 hours or more.
Wow.
The color of the fabric massively affects it as well. So
Really?
red balloons and red fabric tend to, so let me step back. Every year we inspect the balloons, and as part of that inspection, we look at the porosity. So we'll blow through the fabric and see how leaky it is. But we'll also attach 2 clamps on it, and we'll pull the fabric in both directions to make sure it's still strong enough to withstand the pressures of flight. Red fabric always breaks first. It becomes the most brittle. It breaks down under sun and under UV. If you leave a balloon in the bag and it goes wet, it will go moldy. It's not good for it either. But yeah, we test the fabric to make sure it's still strong enough and not porous, so it's leaking loads of gas out and leaking loads of air, so you can use loads of fuel. In a commercial balloon, so in the UK, we find our balloons, because it's Virgin, the company I work for is Virgin Balloon Flights, Richard Branson Virgin. They're red balloons, so they tend to go for kind of 600, 650 hours, even though they're that slightly better fabric, and we retire them. Commercial balloons retire a bit earlier as well, because they have to be perfect, what they're doing.
When you retire them, what does what do you do? Are they just destroyed? Or are they used for something else?
Yeah. So some of the balloons will go into balloon museums. So very often companies will sponsor special shapes. There's a Thomas the Tank Engine balloon. There's a Captain Morgan's pirate ship. There's Bertie. There's all kinds of different shapes. There's McDonald's meal, and so some of those will end up in museums. And they'll get pulled out for balloon events, and they'll inflate them and tether them in front of the crowds because they're crowd pleasers. For normal balloons, when they get old, that's kind of it. There's not a lot of use for them. The big Virgin balloons we've turned a lot of them into dust covers. So during the winter, when all the trailers come in for the winter season, we'll have these massive tarps we can put over stuff. But we're still trying to find a good use for the fabric, because it's still good stuff for the most part.
So I wonder, red goes first. Does that mean blue, violet goes last? And that's
the blues and greens tend to last a lot longer. The reds and oranges tend to go first, which is very interesting.
Huh. I wonder if it is the waves of the light that actually penetrates those particular colors. Yeah, that's neat. I've never even thought about that. So I wonder if that's the same in paramotor wings. The reds and yellows go first, and the blues stay better for a longer period of time. I'm always partial to blue wings anyways, and my wings always seem to last a pretty good long time. My red wing that I had, the first one, the Roadster 3 that I had, it went pretty quick. So
yeah,
my wings got all the color, so I'm covered.
Nice. It will be similar in a paramotor wing. It will be much more forgiving because that pressure equalizes across the whole thing. If you've got different colors, it won't matter so much if one's going quicker than the other. But yeah, it will be the same. It's the same fabric that's used. Both of them are, the fabric on paramotor wings is coated in the same way as balloon fabric as well, to stop it being porous. So
interesting, man. I tell you, I learned so much. It's 9:15 right now. Butch is about ready to fall out.
Yeah.
We got to get up early in the morning to start working on the nonprofit school. It's called runtothesky.org. We help disabled veterans learn to fly paramotors because it is completely, it's therapeutic. It really is.
Transformative. Yeah, it's
It
life
is
changing.
100%. And I believe that wholeheartedly. That's why I put my whole life into this. This is what I want to do. And I heard that that's what you want to do over there. So I highly commend you, and hopefully we can get together sometime and talk more about that and you know, maybe, you know, combine in partnership or something, which would be really
absolutely.
awesome. Excellent.
Y'all
Man,
got a lot of donations lately too, which looks awesome. Y'all got a bunch of
absolutely.
stuff.
We've been so lucky. We had some people come over. We got a Fresh Breeze quad that came in for a donation. We got a trike buggy that came in. We got a couple of free flight harnesses. We got a big 29-meter wing that's only had 2 flights on it.
Yeah, it's like brand new. I was like, look at that wing. It's like brand new.
Yeah, talk about crispy. I'm like, whoa, this is really crispy. So we've been very, very lucky, and we just pass this along to Butch. How many people do we have on the queue? 10 veterans.
Queue. Yep.
10 veterans on the queue to come through. So we're this close to finishing up the school, and that's what we've been doing, 4 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And we've been busting humps. So if you guys are able to run over to runintothe.sky.org, check us out. Obviously, we appreciate anything that you can help us out with. Even if it's just coming over and helping us pound a couple of nails in, you guys are more than welcome to come over. Ben, it's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yes,
All the stuff
absolutely.
that you've done, just the information about ballooning, the etiquettes as far as paramotors and balloons, that's been brought up numerous times over the years. And now we got somebody that does both and tells us, hey, we love to see you guys buzz around. Just make sure that we can see you. Don't go too high or too low, and wave and keep on going. I mean, that's great. I'm so glad that you said that, because now I'm going to be trying to find some balloons to go and buzz and say, hey.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. No, thank you all so much for having me on. I've had a wonderful time. It's been great speaking to you all and getting your views and into the chat as well for your questions. It's been.
No,
it's
thank
been really
you,
wonderful.
Ben. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Gosh, God,
Sure.
we kept you up all night. But
Go
this was
flying in about an hour.
Yeah, you're gonna go fly in an hour, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I will.
true.
Wow. Well,
No,
make
this
sure
was
you
so
video
fun.
it. Make sure you video it and let us know that you took off and flew on a nice day tomorrow, even though it's not tomorrow yet, it's tomorrow for you.
Yeah.
And we'll be looking at your Instagram. We got the Instagram down below along with Ben's bio. So make sure you run over to his Instagram and subscribe and like all of his amazing pictures and videos. That one with the big blue hole that you got there, that looks amazing too. That's amazing. The pictures that he has on his Instagram. So definitely go check that out. Any
This
other
was
questions
awesome.
for Ben before we say goodbye, farewell?
I learned so much tonight. What was this cool or what? I mean,
Yeah.
do I know how to pick the guests? I mean,
You know how to pick
seriously, I was like I said, I saw Ben on Facebook, and I read, you always check to see what they're all about, and I was like, oh yeah, this guy working him on the show. And thank you so much, Ben. Seriously, I totally appreciate you. And,
I've one question for you guys. Where in the US are you based? If I ever come over that way, I'd love to come and visit and fly with you guys at some point.
Butch and I are in Central America, right dead center in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So we are there. Kevin, he's in Mississippi.
Lindy's in Michigan.
So you can pick whichever corner of the US you want to come.
Yeah.
You'll be covered.
Brilliant.
There you go. We're from all over the place. Yes.
Yeah.
Scuba Steve, did you tell us where you're from?
Who? What?
Scuba Steve, did you tell us from where you're
Yes,
from?
No, he
Virginia.
didn't.
Okay.
Virginia. Yeah.
Yep, I'm as close to the water as you can get. On the
Nice.
east coast of Virginia. I'm like right by the ocean.
And Will flies from North Carolina. The one that was on here, he's from North Carolina.
He's right below me. So there you go.
Brilliant.
And
All
Lake
right.
Michigan's right
guys.
behind me in the picture. See, that's Lake
Yeah.
Michigan, right? Almost out my front door. I can walk to the lake. I
That's-
love it.
That's awesome. Ben, if you ever get to America, definitely you got a place to hang out. Our school is going to be set up for people to stay. We got travel trailers out there too for special people. And would love for you to come over and say hi and barbecue with us and
Yes, brilliant.
and fly around and just talk about paramotors and even ballooning.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. And
Absolutely.
if you guys get a chance to jump in a balloon, go and do it. It's amazing. It's another form of flying, unobstructed views. You'll love it.
I think I'm going to have to try that. I've heard way too many good things about it now. Before I didn't want to, but now I'm like, you know what? I think I will. That sounds like a good thing to do.
I've been once in a balloon and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Ben, you're welcome to anytime come hang with us to the Zoom.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
On Mondays.
Absolutely.
More than welcome. We got you in the guest chat and all that. So yeah, anytime, just jump in there and chat with us because we talk paramotors. Well, most of the guys do, I just kind of hang out in the chat, in our guest chat, but yeah.
And we always say that we're going to do 1 hour and we never do 1 hour. It always goes way over.
Not even close this time. I'm like, we're at 2.5 hours now.
I mean, he's like, 1 o'clock in the morning, he said, or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, all right, we'll just do 1 hour and that's it. Now that never happens.
Yes.
But we definitely appreciate you,
Thank you, Ben.
hanging with us for such a long time and get some sleep, buddy. Get some sleep.
I'm gonna get some Italian coffee in a few hours time and that'll sort me out.
There you go. Good coffee.
Shout out to my chatters. Thank you so much, chatters and viewers and everybody, listeners and all that. Thank you for hanging with us on Monday night. We so appreciate all of you. So much love. That's what I say in my show. Don't I say my show?
Always.
Does that work now?
See, I started you guys on it. Hey.
Well, on my Zoom,
Mine
when I do
doesn't do
this,
it.
it
And
does.
I updated, I
When
even
I
updated my
started-
Zoom, but my camera just will not, it'll do the thumb.
If I do this, it has little hearts that come out. If I do this, it lightens and then it does these sparkly things.
Oh, look at that.
See, and I updated this today. So I don't know where that's at. I mean, it's updated now. What are you supposed to hit?
I don't know, but here's my
I like
heart.
how, the little hearts come up.
Don't forget to
Yeah.
potty before you fly. Well, there you go.
Don't forget what?
Don't forget to potty before you fly.
Yeah.
I was going
After
to
all
say
that-
to Ben, don't take any terminally ill people on your hot air balloon because, you had that guy that was terminally ill with cancer and decided to get in a helicopter and jump out when he was 2,000 or 3,000 feet in the air.
What?
Yeah.
Was this when was this? What?
This has been years ago. Bill Burr talked about it. This guy, his dad turned the business over to his son, and his son had been running the business for like 2 weeks. And this guy was like, "Yeah, I wanna go fly in a helicopter." So they did. And when they took off in the helicopter, the guy just unbuckled his seatbelt and jumped out of the freaking helicopter. So yeah.
There's a pilot here in Italy. He had a passenger die during the flight. Didn't tell him beforehand that he was terminally ill. And he landed, had to tell the family, and the family apparently weren't even remotely surprised. They were like, "Yeah, we thought it would probably happen today."
Wow. So they knew.
It's
Yeah.
the last thing he did was being up in the air. It's worse place to go, isn't there?
No. I mean, honestly, for me, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if I'm gonna go where I love. Go.
That's what Bill was saying. He's like, that dude's a hero to me, man. He went out the way he wanted to. He didn't let cancer kill him. He went out the way he wanted to. It sucked for the helicopter pilot though, because he just took over the business. It's like, man,
Oh man.
that's got to suck for you, dude.
Well,
Ouch.
anyway, what a wonderful
Yeah, what a wonderful way to end
fun
the show.
filled podcast. Great
Scuba, I've
note
been doing
to
some
leave
football.
on. All
Me.
right. But anyways, had a great time, Ben. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for all the information. You're
Thanks,
definitely
guys.
have a wealth of information. I don't even think that I'll have to watch this again just to remember everything that you talked about. I mean, just so much information. And thank you so much, my friend. Absolutely had a blast.
Thank you guys. I had a
Appreciate
great
y'all.
time.
All right, buddy. Well, have a great evening and thank you again. You're more than welcome to sign off. We're going to say goodbye and farewell to everybody
I
else.
see.
Do their
That's-
sign offs. So thank you so much, Ben. You can either go or stay. We appreciate you. Thank you
I'll
so
stay
much.
for a minute and see the
Okay,
sign-offs.
okay.
and then-
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you again. Ben Raven, guys, from the UK. Make sure you check out his Instagram down below, his bio. Go over to his Instagram, obviously, and say hi and love all of his stuff that he does. It's so awesome. Butch Fly from ppgbutch.com. He is the director of operations over at runtothesky.org, our nonprofit to help disabled veterans run into the sky. Butch, tell us a little bit about Run to the Sky, the director of operations, how many people we got going, and it looks like he's nodding off because he's so tired.
Butch
Yep,
is rolling to
baby.
the sky now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
I've been doing a little foot launch here lately.
Oh, okay, good.
But yeah, we've got 10 veterans lined up. We're just working on the funding, and to everybody that's donated, thank you very much and keep it coming. We appreciate it, but we always need more. You know, it costs money, but
Yeah,
hey, if
exactly.
you're making dreams come true, this is the best therapy in the world. There's nothing like flying. There's nothing like it. And you're making dreams come true. So
Tell us a little bit about the school and where we are in the school and what's to come.
well, we've got the plumbing almost all the way done in the bathroom. We do have running water, and we've got the lights now, and we got some electrical plug-ins. We're working on more this week, and we're going to be putting a loft in and finishing the walls.
Got a lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff going
lot
on.
of
We got
stuff.
new students coming in. We got some other students coming in this week. So it's nonstop. And without Butch, I don't think I could do this. Anytime, all the heavy lifting, he does. All the computer work, he does. All the emails, he does. He does so much. He's taken so much off my plate, and I appreciate everything that you've done, Butch. I could not do this without you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving the opportunity.
Absolutely, my friend. Found a new best friend. That's really awesome. I mean, like I said, couldn't do this without him. Thank you. We also got Linda, our very own Linda with the pom-poms. She's our PR girl. She's our PR girl, not only for the
My
podcast,
cheerleader.
which is now part of the nonprofit, because if I go, I mean, I want this podcast to continue. So I donated this podcast to Run Into the Sky. So now it belongs to Run to the Sky. And not only is Linda our PR girl for this podcast for the last 4 seasons, or how many seasons have you been on? We're on our 4th season. So you've been with us for 3 seasons at least, or all 4?
I think all 4.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
did the.
you've
Yeah,
been with us from almost the very
Yeah.
beginning.
yeah.
She's also taken up the position of the PR person for Run Into the Sky, the nonprofit, and she's helping us out, as part of the board also. So we definitely thank you so much for everything that you've done. Now you got a famous son
Love it.
that does
know.
something also too and does a podcast. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah.
true. My son, Robert Michaels, he has a show on Thursday nights called paraglidingtalk.com every Thursday night. And he always has awesome guests, and we just have really a lot of fun with it. And like I said, I got interested in seeing what he does and everything. And now, I message him and say, hey, you should get this guest on your show, and we go back and forth on it. We just have a really good time with it. And I've made, in the last 4 years, our paramotor failure has gotten so huge
It has.
It's amazing. And every guest that I get on here, I look at as another, as a new paramotor friend, a new paramotor family member. And then it's like, when I get the guest on, then they get introduced to all kinds of people and make new friends and find out, learn where the fly-ins are and all that stuff. And it opens a whole new world for them too. So
You need to tell Robert about Ben. Maybe Ben can jump on another show.
yeah. Oh, I will. Yeah, definitely will. I'm going to send him the link so he can watch the show, watch it later or whatever. Definitely. Yeah, I'm always sending him stuff. So it's fun. Yep. Then sometimes he'll get a guest on the show and I'll be like, wait a minute, how'd you get him on there? So, so quick or whatever. But we, like I said, we just have fun with it. And then of course, Wednesday night is Jade Lear has her show. Just Want to Fly. And
Paramotorgirl.com.
yes, paramotorgirl.com. So you got to check her out. And on Wednesday night, she always has a really cool show.
Absolutely. So, well, we thank you so much, Miss Linda. We appreciate everything that you do.
I appreciate you guys. You're
don't know what we'd do without you either.
You're my family. Absolutely.
Excellent. We also got our very own Kevin from Mississippi that comes all the way over to Arkansas to train over at paramotorarkansas.com. And how are you doing on your training and how do you feel so far? You're getting pretty close to taking your solo, aren't you, buddy?
I am. I came and spent the weekend in Arkansas, helped around putting things together and did my first, was it power taxi without
a wing?
A wing, thank you.
Yeah, I know it's getting late for everybody. And you found out what 80 cc's is as far as power, and the thrust on 80 cc's blew you away, didn't it?
Right, it did. So, but if you're not ready for it, it'll take you for a ride.
That's for sure. Well, Kevin, can't wait for you to get back over here and finish your training, get your first solo so you can be part of the flying family. You're already part of the family, but you want to get up there and feel what it's all about. So can't wait for you to get up in the air, bro.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Then, of course, we got our Scuba Steve. What's up, Scuba Steve?
Yes,
he does
sir.
a podcast on Friday, and he does a vaping / paramotor podcast every Friday over at paramotordude.com. Tell us a little bit about that, bruh.
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, I do a show about vaping that's not allowed on Ben's balloon, by the way. Just make sure.
Yeah, see the things that we learn, right?
I know. It's like, oh, you can't even vape. I know you can't smoke, but you can't vape on his balloon. That sucks. I'd be like, take me down.
You're good on the launch field. It'll tell me which way the wind's going.
There you go.
For the launch only.
So yeah, we just talk about vaping, a lot about paramotoring now because it kind of takes over once you start flying. It just becomes part of your daily life. It seems like everything is, you're like paramotor this, paramotor that. And Kevin, I look forward to seeing you fly, man. If you're doing that powered taxi, then your next step is in the air, dude, which is going to be awesome because, it's like you're taking a long time to get it done, but when you get it done, that feeling of accomplishment is all the better. It's like I freaking did it. It's going to be
so
awesome.
excited for you, man. It's going to change your life.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. So looking forward to it.
Can't wait to see it, man. I know Sean will get video, even if he's on the stupid 9-bot thing.
Yeah, he will.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Scuba Steve. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Paramom. Thank you, Butch, and especially Ben Raven for jumping on the show at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 4 o'clock in the morning, his time in Italy. Dude, I don't know how you do it, but thank you so much. Enjoyed the conversation immensely.
Yes. Super fun.
Absolutely. Ben, thanks
All
again.
right.
And I can't wait until the next time we go out and run into the sky together.
Yeah, quite right.
There you go.
Cheers, guys. Blue
Good night.
skies and all that. Bye.
Definitely. Peace out, everybody. We love you. See you next
ya.
week.
Bye.
Peace. And hearts, real quick. We got to do some hearts. here.
No hearts.
Come on, hearts. Go.
Hearts don't work.
Hearts. There we go. There we go. All right.
Mine
Come
don't
on,
work.
Scuba. Come on, Scuba. You can do it.
I got the broken heart, man. I got a broken heart.
Come on, dude. There we go. Got the hearts
Maybe
going.
if I had heart surgery, I could. No, I don't.
Oh man, what a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
All
Thank
right.